Well, I just want to welcome you all here. It is really great to see everyone. Get reconnected. Brand new, fresh start of the year. I hope your year is off to a great start. I would just like to acknowledge any of those that are here for the first time. If you would, could you just stand and we can acknowledge those that are new to ASCUS and here for the first time. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot. The networking that we do here is most beneficial, and the information always is very helpful in our jobs day to day. So, we are also live on the web. We decided as a board that we would like to reach out to more folks that maybe can't do the traveling that it takes to get here in town. And also we are really stretching our facility here. We have a large crowd again here today, and we're very thankful for that. But we do want to make available another option for those that may not be able to travel. So welcome those that are on the webcast. We have about 25 or so. So we're happy to hear that, and welcome to those folks. I also want to thank the crew from ADE. There are several of them here this morning, and they'll be introduced at their time. But thank you for being here and just willing to come teach us all about the new system and give us the guidance that we need in our daily jobs. Now I want to introduce our team. You know me, Annette Moreno. I'm president of ASCUS. And we have Brian Parks, our vice president. We have Susie Smith, our secretary. Laura Blanco is our treasurer. We have Susan Parks, who will be here today, and Sophia Lynn of Creighton Elementary, and Carol Elder. She's also there out in the front helping others. So they're our student chair reps. And we have our finance chair reps, Heather Mock of Deer Valley. Scott Huseman of Alhambra. And our newest member, what's her name? Zelva of White River Unified. And we are so happy that we have, she's in the back. We're happy to have her on the board. She represents the rural and small school districts and also our native school districts. So thank you, Dee. So we've been busy over the summer. We have just a few updates as far as organization goes. We are always open to your suggestions on any agenda items that you would like to see in our meetings. Anything that you can help us to support our members. So please feel free to email any of us on the board. We have Ask the Board on the website. You can use that as a way of communicating with us. So please send us your suggestions. So the first thing I've already introduced the live webcast. So that was for those who can't travel or just feel like they need to stay back. I want to thank ASCUS. They have offered for us to use their webinar access. So I want to thank them for letting us kind of borrow some of the equipment that's necessary and that access. We are just trying this out, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it will work, and then we can make the investment we need to do as far as the ASCUS organization. Okay, so thank you, ASBO. Thank you, Ernie, nicely done. He is the coordinator of all of this wonderful live cast, so thank you. And Scott, of course. He and EJ have been working on this, getting this set up and making sure that it works for us. So, you may be wondering what happened to the summer meetings that we talked about back in April. Well, ADE kind of took the lead on that, so we kind of stepped back and said, you know, it's all yours. They should be providing training. So we look forward to any of the trainings that they will offer in the future. And we, of course, will be ones to communicate that out to all of our members. Ask the Board. So what is Ask the Board, the feature on the website? That is where you can just go and ask simple questions about our organization, about how we implement rules, other things as far as student information, finance systems, and so forth. We're not going to speak on behalf of ADE, but we can certainly share our opinions and how we have implemented something in our district. So just so you're aware that we may refer you to ADE or their site or other resources if you do ask very specific questions about laws, statutes, and so forth. So, okay. Well, please use the new feature. Just as a reminder, all meetings are recorded and will be posted so you can view them later in case you miss something or just have a hard time remembering when you get back. You can always refer to our website and look those up. Also, check our website for any of the ADE links and information, important memos. We will be posting them as they become available, as we are informed of them. So we will have links and so forth from our website to reach that information, those resources. The meeting dates for ASCUS are posted on our website. The next meeting is December 2nd. They are all on Fridays. We decided that that was the majority liked our meetings on Fridays, so we're going to continue doing that. We do have a new accounting software program, so I just would ask for your patience in the invoicing, the PO process, also the RSP process. We're just working through those, and once we get everything, our process in place, it will be a better system. So, membership dues are $60, and I just want to remind you that we do have additional costs as an organization, so it's not just for facility use. We do have the website to maintain, which we have costs that we incur for maintaining the website, and we may have costs involved with the webcast if we continue to do that. And of course, accounting and all those little things that add up. So membership dues are really to cover costs, not only facility use, but all the other costs associated with running the organization. We do appreciate you being members, and we hope you find value in attending the meetings, either by webcast or coming here in person. Again, we want to develop others, we want to network, and just learn and grow in our profession. So we hope you do continue to see value in that, and if you don't, please let us know so we can do better. We have a very full agenda today, and we are excited to have ADE team here to provide us their updates and information on AZEDs. With any new system, there are going to be challenges and bumps in the road. We just ask for your patience in working with ADE. And we need to be flexible and helpful and work as a team and try to be partners with them so we can build a system that is useful and helps us in our day-to-day operations, our daily tasks. So that's what this meeting is all about, is getting together, let's talk through options, solutions, let's make the system better. So I hope we have a great year ahead of us with the new system, and we'll continue to have these productive meetings and move forward. Together we can accomplish more and build that system that we really need. So, first up, I would like to welcome Mark Masterson, and he's going to start with his team and give us some updates. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Today marks 5 years of 6 years will be in January that I've been coming here. And we're marking, when I first came here, how many of those were here? Okay, there's still a good amount. if you remember, it was a pretty ugly experience. And because you were frustrated with the system that saves. But over time, you sort of liked what I did in fixing it. And then all of a sudden, you wanted to keep it, but it was dying. And other parts are still dying. So SACE is put to sleep. Only thing it has done is 915. It is asleep. It's still running because I have to do 915. I don't, school finance does, but the 915s will be run through that until we get the next 915 process in, which we'll come back and discuss more when we have it more fully defined. But at a high level, it's basically your vendor and you own the data. Remember what we've just done. And I want to congratulate all of you. So as of today, 617 districts are submitting to ASCUS. 617. That's because of each of you in this room. Some of you have gone through curriculum efforts because you started with the testing at the very beginning and wanted to pull out your hair. Those are all the people in the room. But the fact that you've done that, you've come this far. I'm to the stage that IT's role has changed. You are not going to see IT because the system, you don't go see your IT people. You do business as usual, right? And your business as usual is you have the students, the system processes the students. Now, in the background, we'll be still working bugs that come up and communicating those bugs through our websites and our things. But what does IT do? So I've been much more engaged because we had to reinvent the system. Systems invented. There's still a couple things that we have to work out with some districts. There's 617. I think there's a total of 654. I'm not exactly sure because it changes. So there's a few that haven't done. Lyle will talk about anything that's school finance related, so I won't take any questions around that area. What is IT's new role? One is to rebuild the school finance system. But that doesn't, you won't see that. Some of you may, because you'll be invited to a group in order to review interpretations of how the law is done so that we can all agree, so there won't be any finger pointing at the end. But the biggest, hardest lift was ASCUS. And I don't know what you're going to do with the name SACE, because I want to bury SACE's name. But ASCUS is fully alive and functioning. In fact, we processed 17 million transactions last week. And it's pretty current. And you guys are pumping it through at less than 90% of those are at 200 milliseconds, which is less than 0.2 of a second. But we're processing each transaction. My SLA to you is 0.500, so a half a second. So I'm trying to figure out right now where's the mix, right? Because it costs. I built a huge. I mean, we're pretty big and wide open right now because we had to get all the big ones in. Tucson, is anybody here in Tucson? Tucson is fully up and running. Not only but they had a big effort because they went from a hobby, which is homemade, to a whole other SIS, and had to do that while implementing something else, and they're up. Mesa, Chandler, all of it. I can go through all of it. I can't even remember all the big districts, but all the big districts are pretty much running. There may be a couple that still having issues, but the majority is in the smalls that we still have to figure out how to help them. And my team will not stop. But what I want to let you understand what I do, and I'll explain it, is so anything that's doing with what you do really belongs to school finance. So school finance owns all the training to make sure that you have all the training. If it comes to things like the transport layer, now I've got really technical, and I'll explain what that means. The transport layer is the layer between your system through the API to our system. That I own. I've got got to make sure that works. Means I work with your vendors in order to make you successful. We will be continuing to change the API or make it faster, add more items as we uncover things that we use from other program areas in your departments, in your district. Because you still submit data through other ways. Our objective is to stop that when we have a couple. So one of the other ones that's coming up would be SDER. We're going to end up putting an API out there and dealing with the vendors on that one. So that does. There's a couple large districts asking to look at OCR. That's a big deal for you guys. I have probably most of the data anyway. I don't know if I have it all. That's another analysis that we have to do. But those are the things that IT will do to try to limit how we impede what you do, which is helping kids get to the next level. So after 6 years, it sort of saddens to say that this has been a great experience for me, but it's time to pass the bar. Now, I'd be happy to come back and talk to you all as if you demand. I look at you as customers. But normally your demands will be probably more timing-wise, like you want it right now, and we'll be dealing with your vendor and you directly through our normal process. So, just to be clear, what is IT responsible for now that AZEDS is running is the transport. And then if integrity rules, somebody says, well, I don't believe that rule. Okay, well, then it goes to a board. IT doesn't even change the rule. It goes to a board, the board looks at it and says, yeah, well, we need to change the rule. And then I program. But that's what I do. And it's good that we've come to this spot. I never think it'd take 6 years. Never in my life have I done something that took this long, but this is pretty large. And you should be all proud that you're being nationally recognized. A lot of educational philanthropy is looking at what we've done. Everybody wants to get data in one place. Nobody's done any such data very long. We have an operational data store running. AZ Dash should be operational anytime between now and October 1st. We'll let you know. We had to move AZ Dash from pipes reaching all these legacy systems to get you data to AZ Dash. Now goes right to the ODS. So when you change a student, a day later, the student is reflected in AZ Dash. So the teacher, if you move a class, if the kid moves from district to district, AZ Dash will have that. We'll be working on AZ Dash again, trying to have, this was a big lift this year, so we'll be going back to looking at how we can make AZ Dash more efficient for teachers. So there's going to be a lot of things that we start working on. I'm also the Ed Tech director for the state, so I work a lot with SETA. And before, there was not a lot of value. But now that we have what we have, there's a lot of value that we can start to talk about between us and you as district. That'd be a different role than the role that I'm standing in here. So just wanting you to understand, and I promised that I wouldn't have been here too long, but I didn't want to just all of a sudden not show up. The superintendent is busy, and she's sorry that she couldn't make it to your first one. She will be here at your next event. So she's very interested in getting your feedback on how's it going. All right. Well, right now you're in the middle of the throes, getting kids into the system, and I'm seeing a lot of success. Some of the things, and I do watch. If you ever want a tour and you're in the downtown area, you could come and schedule and talk to us, and we'll show you how we watch everything. I mean, we're down to the detail of, I know what transaction you did and what it failed, and why it failed. All right, but I can't call all of you. I've got to get, I'm working on the biggest ones, and then I work down to the littlest ones. And hopefully, by helping you fix the big ones, and a lot of them is you don't trust the system yet. I would say that's the number one. So you do a get all, or a get, and the and the student is not there, so it gives you an error. If you just submit it, if the student's there, it will update it, or not, depending on if you change it. So as you gain more trust in what your vendors have built for you, and some districts are taking full advantage of it. I see transactions from districts that's every hour. Every hour they're sending those data. You know, but that's your call. Because I know the law says 20 days. But the longer you wait, I think I've said this for the whole year, the longer you wait to submit, the harder it is to figure out what's wrong. Because you forgot. I slept since last night. And anything I did yesterday, you have to remind me. Because I have other things going on just like you do. You know, so it's really important that the faster you submit, the easier it is on you. So our support tree is you still contact our ADE support center unless you know it's specifically a school finance. But if you contact ADE support center, there's a button for school finance. So you can get to school finance through the ADE support center number. But if it is a school finance issue, which relays around anything about your payment or your ADM or anything like that, then we will take your message and soft forward it to school finance to have their person work with you. Vendors still continue to submit issues to us. Now we're still working on phones with the big vendors. The thing that we'll be working with the big vendors very shortly is version, we're on what's called ed5e.next. Because we're so advanced, the nation, we had to use their beta API. Well, they now have version 2.1, which has some more enhancements in it, and I want to move to version 2.1. It will not be anything like going from SACE to AZ. It's something that usually I think the vendors and us can work on and make that switch. And it gives better performance. Also, there was some of you had an indexed out-of-bound error. That happened to be some code inside the Ed5 code that was doing some malware detecting. Why would you need malware detecting on a secure HTTP connection? Okay, so we had to get rid of that. But in version 2.1, it doesn't have that. So they figured that out. We didn't until we found it. And you found it. But as you can tell, every time you escalated something, all hands were on deck. How's our communications to you? Is that red flag working? Is there anything there that I needed to do better? But I mean, my communications to you is the most important thing to me. Just letting you know what's going on systematically wise. But as we found big issues this beginning of this year, we were all hands on deck. And the thing that I really noticed is that you guys do pay attention to the ADM reports. And in fact, you probably go right to that and skip the integrity reports. But I recommend that you guys will be getting lessons with WILE, that there's a process that you should follow. But I immediately heard one, I think we had one down day last month on ADM reports because we had an issue. And somebody that uses it every morning at 8 o'clock while I was standing in the back. That's a huge good thing. It's not a bad thing. He was depending on a tool that was there that was never there before. You never had this visibility in the middle of the month. In fact, when I arrived, you didn't have the visibility for 6 months. But now, you have the visibility every day. And to me, that is what we wanted to design it that way so that you could be better helping yourself. And we are listening to, we're pulling in districts to talk to them and say, what kind of reporting would make it? Now, for a big district, you've got a bunch of Excel experts and you can get what you need done. But small districts don't have all those people, and trying to manipulate Excel might be harder than you think. So we got to figure out how to make things so that they can help them reconcile faster, better, and your demands for training. I think the superintendent would support me in saying this. It should be, make sure that you articulate what type of training you need and let school finance know. Our objective is, and they've taken this on as their objective, is to do webinars and then record them so that you can watch them again. You know, so that, because, you know, there's different cycles, and I didn't know this, I now do for you guys. There's different cycles of the year. You just went through the beginning of the year cycle. And then you go, but the problem is, ASCUS has changed your cycles. Because you used to do the 100-day crash, or the 40-day. Let's get it all done on the 40th day. But if you do it at the beginning of the year right, it's all done. If you teach your districts just to manage the registration of the students, it's all done. I know I'm making it sound simpler than I know that, because I don't wear your hat. I'm just telling you. But if you build the processes in your district, like we built in our agency, it will get better. You're just at the very beginning of having to build processes, because we flipped your processes upside down. Because you're used to doing certain things at a certain time. For those that are brand new, that I saw stand up, well, you don't have any memories of the bad times. So you've got nothing but flowers and ponies. We hope. So my role is to ensure data gets into ASCUS. That's what IT does. We've done it. It works. Every vendor that is in our state has successful submissions. There's districts within vendors that are having a hard time. I think what we need to do is work with your vendor to find out why you're difficult. Then it gets to me, right? And the one thing I wouldn't do is slam anybody for feeling bad that there's a problem. We just need to get through it and fix it. And so this is a big high-level picture of what a support process looks like for us. And school finance does not necessarily fit in this box, but I just wanted to point out that they don't work for me. But how we get stuff to school finance. So it can come in through triage. We have a triage, and that's Lori Venturi is my deputy associate superintendent in charge of that. And her people, if you see Lori, she is an AE employee. So there she is. I think it took me forever, she'll say that. And her team's job is to take your calls and understand the problem and get it to the right place. We have lots of our number one problem is common law. Why? It's the beginning of the year. I'm trying to kill common law this year. That's another thing I'm trying to do, is kill it. And that means I gotta move all the stuff that's on common law into AD Connect. So we're working on it. AD Connect will change too. AD Connect is moving to the cloud. And it'll be the newest version of ADFS, which Microsoft builds into ADP, which enables us to even do other things with you in the future. So we're moving to Office 365 and Global Active Directory. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing that ties to all this. But they handle that stuff. Tier 1 is if it's like setting common logon passwords or resetting, that's what they do. That's Lori's team again. But in the triage, if they find out you're calling about a payment issue, my ADM doesn't seem right, this doesn't match this, then that's handed off to school finance. We don't try to address that. In the past, this is a big change to you because we used to have Terry Mendez who tried her best to handle a certain amount of calls. But we clearly delineated in our agency what's school finance and what is IT. So, and that, I shouldn't be quoting law, that's not what I do. You know, that's Lyle's role. So let's make sure that people that best know what they need to do are doing. Again, if I have to go to the program areas, like we manage certification issues, or there's assessment, or there's grants. Those are the things that will get to the right places. Tier 2 is if it's an infrastructure layer that you're having trouble getting the data to us, that's Tier 2. And that's Sherry Fimbres, who's in the back. Sherry oversees Tier 2 and she oversees development. So the two are very closely linked right now as we try to make sure it all works smoothly. If Tier 2 finds that the issue they're having needs some school finance intervention, like it might be an integrity rule, we lessened some integrity rules from, for example, and I won't know, so I'm not going to speak specifically, from a mandatory to a warning in order for you guys to get used to the new rules. Some of those warnings will be going back to mandatory, but those will be discussed by Lyle and his organization. But those are the kinds of questions we don't make decisions on. We talk to the correct people, our legal department, Lyle, and so forth and so on, JLDC. Tier 3 is peer development. If you have a problem in Tier 2, it requires like the index problem in the API. That went to level 3. I had all hands on deck, or I didn't. Sure I did. I don't do anything really. I just come here and talk to you once every quarter. You really want my job, because I don't do anything. But Sherry put all our team together, and I see you wearing a Bronco shirt. That's freaking awesome yesterday, isn't it? I'm a 5th generation Coloradoan, so like last night I was almost in tears, and then they missed the field goal. Yes! And then they showed Cam's face. Yes! Because he looked like he got hit by a truck again. Just like the Super Bowl. And we had what? A rookie quarterback that never thrown a pass. Not that I care. Yes, Dan.
Just a question about when it goes from Tier 1 to Tier 2, because I have an issue that I went to the regular support, then I went to school finance, and I talked to my vendor. I'm assuming it's in 2 now, but I've had no kind of communication telling me, do I move it, does school finance move it, who moves it to Tier 2?
We do all the moving. So if you have a question, call Tier 1. They will tell you where it is. And Tier 1 should follow up, not just say, it's in Tier 3. Tier 1, and while you're here, Tier 1 should follow up, say, we'll take your name down and find out what's going on. And then we'll contact school finance or Sherry and call you back. Now, if that doesn't happen, I want to know. Because I don't want you out on an island wondering where you are. Now, we do have an external facing showing where their ticket is, yet or no? That's being built still. We're building an external portal so you can see where it is. And you can see what, once we have the external portal, it'll be a lot easier for us to mandate them writing notes in it so you can see where it's at.
So it went from support to finance, I believe, without a ticket, because when I was in support, I was just transferred to finance, or I called finance. Anyway, the point being, I don't believe there's a ticket number.
Well, that would be something, when Lyles comes up here, let's say that for his team and his process, I don't know. I know that we send, if you push, is it 5?
If you create, if you call us, we create a ticket automatically.
Yeah, but what happens if you press 5?
If you press 5, it goes, bypasses complete support, and it goes straight over to
Yeah, I
combat
didn't do it that
program.
way though. I called them direct after, but I did call your desk first.
You should have had a ticket. We're still getting into new processes, but we've got about probably 80% of call tickets being created for every call.
Okay.
I want it to 100. Not there yet. I apologize.
Yeah, we want to, because,
It's an integrity, I believe, so.
well, then that would be a school finance decision. And save that question, save the specific hard questions for Lyle. Okay, this is what I've been talking about short term. Our job is to enable ALEAs to submit program data and roll over. So the thing that we found out this year from SACE to ASET, SACE had a long year rollover process because it was all manual. We had to do everything manually. ASET doesn't. The new year will start the next day. All right, it just moves. Now, our other systems in AE don't necessarily do that. And when we're talking about program codes, those are grants. And grants doesn't load their programs until when? October. Because the feds, you know. However, 90% of them, they know, I don't know why they don't. But we're working on it internally in order to make this more smoother for you so that the program codes don't impact you. And that's important, and we're working on that. Again, we're adding integrity rules to validate program data submitted by an LEA once it's all approved. Valid submission of program data, this affects everything in our agency. in making sure that your data gets in there so that other departments can use this in order to federal and state reporting, and ultimately, giving you money. So we will continue to look at integrity rules as the need comes up, as Lyle or you or your business manager say, hey, this is not working. The fact that you get to see, your ADM, and I'll let him talk more about that. The fact that you see what your, I'd say, your estimated ADM is at any given point in time, that you look for challenge. ELL and SPED are other things that we want to make sure that you stay on top of because of what? Obviously, financial considerations. So we're working with those people. And as you continue to find those problems, those aren't things that wait for these meetings. Those are things that we need to know about in order to be working on them. And then maybe somebody updates you in these meetings on what we had so you know. But we're not going to wait for these kind of meetings. That's why IT is sort of moving in the background and doing what IT does, and that's fixing broken systems. This is my last slide. And I appreciate, after 6 years of being here, you guys have been a very, very good group to work with. You guys have enabled this state to leapfrog every other state in the country in a way of doing data collection. The ability of us turning this data back to you is huge now, so that you can use it. You don't have to buy vendors. But the vendors, the big vendors, provide you good tools. All right, some districts don't have those great tools. Some of the big vendors provide. So that's where we want to step in and make sure you have your data. Because it's not, just because I have the data doesn't mean it's my data. Whose data is it? It's yours. It's the parent's data. It doesn't belong to us. We just got to have it for audits and paying bills and other than that. But it's yours. That's why this system was designed to make it what's on your system is on our system. But that's a mindset change. That's the biggest mindset change you have. You just can't go into SACE Online and change things. You got to fix it on your system. You've got to change that student, and it will be submitted in process, and that will affect. That is the big change. FY16, I'll let Lyle discuss. So anything that is around IT, if there's a couple of questions, I'd be glad to entertain. Yes, ma'am.
Mine is related to AD Connect and setting up new users. The way it's currently configured, it takes me, it's an organization, we operate 12 single site LEAs, is to set up one new user and assign all of the relationships and then roles. It takes anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes by the time you
For one user.
For one user. It's a nightmare. And I don't know if that's because we're organized the way we are, but I imagine even at a district that had a district person who needed access to 25 schools, they would be facing the same.
So you're not setting them up based on the federation, which is the SIS 2 days out. You're setting them up as separate.
I'm the entity administrator, so in order for even the SIS to do that on-site connecting, you have to go into the
And assign them a role.
and assign them the relationship. And then when you assign the relationship, you can only click one thing at a time. And then you click assign and OK, and then out, and then it goes back out to the first one. And
Okay, so
you have to close
again.
the window and it passes out. It's not even exaggerating.
Okay, I get it. And
I've did a ticket recommending
we will.
couple times.
So AD Connect, when we rewrite it, and when the first time we wrote it, we thought we understood all of what you guys did, like everything we did. There's a lot of things we didn't know. And that's the next version. So I don't want to, it's going to be like it is right now until I move it to the cloud. Microsoft has expanded their capability. Some states have looked at identity management systems, just like using Google Federation. The problem with Google is there's no full role space. And it's very critical for us that you have the ability to set roles. Because that way, it's your responsibility that the person that sees the data is the active person. It's not mine. The problem with Common Logon is I set it up and I don't have no idea what they do. And the problem and that is a problem, because I should have no security rights in your area. So that's the purpose of AD Connect, but it sounds like we have some functionality that sounds like the workflow is way too stupid. So I really need to get a BA to sit with somebody like her, sit behind the screens and say, that's not efficient. Okay, I've heard it. We went around the neighborhood 6 times looking for the trash can, and we found it in somebody's garage. Any other questions that are IT related? Yes, ma'am.
Please, if we could use the microphone for the questions,
Okay,
that would be very helpful for those that are
I'll run
on
over.
the live webcast, please. We'll bring it to you. Just raise your hand if you have a question, please.
Also, I think my question is when items are moved from Common Logon over to ADE Connect, if you would let the superintendent or the people up top know, because I had someone trying to do grants management and her deadline was coming, and, you know, they didn't know that it had to be through ADE Connect, and they were trying to go to the Common Logon.
Is this a new grants management program? That one's been on AD Connect for a year. Okay, but I agree with you. We probably talked to the entity administrator, and what we need to do is, at least, is communicate with, when we do a move, we communicate to this, we do a mass communication to all superintendents, business officers, and so on, so they know. I understand what you're saying. Make sure it goes top down and bottom up. Because sometimes top down just gets you. I understand. That's why I include you in all of you. Any other questions that are IT?
So when you move them from Common Login to AD Connect, are they still listed in Common Login? You just can access them like you there, or what?
Well, that's a really good question. I can tell you what I said it's supposed to do, but now I have to ask somebody if it does do. Is it's supposed to decommission AD Connect, Common Login app. When I move it, it should be decommissioned.
I'm just thinking that they can just leave it there, the alter that says move AD Connect, so that way they're not trying to click on it. And say,
No, well, I gotta remove it.
oh, it has to be removed.
Yes, because I gotta close Common Login. That thing, my end of this year, I wanna have it disappear, you won't even see it.
Well, I mean, until that's done, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you can just leave everything at the end, or maybe, I don't know this, because this is the same question I got, probably a couple weeks ago. And the grants person's been there for who knows how long. But, as well as maybe like a space, is there a space that actually lists all of the applications that are on AD Connect, rather than trying to find a role for it?
There's a report. There's a report inside the Connect on all the roles, on all of the applications.
Okay, so what we need to do is broadcast that again, I guess, to people. So let them know that it's there. Any other questions? How much time do you want? I'm over time, right?
We're okay. We're okay. Take as many as you need to.
I'm not trying to skate out of here when you talk to me in the hallway.
So, thank you. I just want to be for Lori. How are the duplicate SACE ID, AdFi IDs numbers being handled? When we all went to the AdFi and clicking, you know, some of those numbers didn't exist in this new database. I've got quite a few students dupes, and they're not being answered, and it's been a month. And so I was just kind of wondering if we could hear the process on how duplicate SACE ID, AdFi IDs, whatever we're calling them, how that's being handled.
So I would say that for the next session.
Okay.
That's quite
So everybody knows that role also, because you used to call us, we did merge and split the saves. IT does no longer do that. That's done by school finance. Any other questions?
Easy one. You offered a tour of your IT operations.
No, well, no. You contact my office, Emily Carey, she'll arrange that. And that way you can really see the level of detail we've talked. I know when you're down before you know you're down. Yes.
If there's an issue with the report, is it your office?
With a report,
Yes, like we pulled the,
like it doesn't work,
well, like there's no names on it? Oh,
okay, then that'd probably be a school finance question. It could be, it comes back to me
Okay.
because something I coded wrong, but there should be, we believe we wouldn't have put a report out that didn't have names come on it. And so there might be something that they could answer that would tell you why there's no names on it. Boy, this is awesome. You don't know how awesome I am. This is like awesome, it's all awesome. Broncos won and I transitioned. I'm gonna let this go because you guys have got a lot to ask. They've got a lot of material to present. And I am grateful for you all. And this is not an end, it's in the beginning. And it's a chance to transition. My focus was always on improving children's performance in the classroom. It was not building this thing. I came here to get business intelligence for AI to your teachers. I can now start that. Okay, 6 years later. But that's all right. There's a lot of people that say they can do it, but nobody's ever done it. And it's just, that's the next step. And those, if ever I come to these conversations, it'll be around those kinds of things. I'm starting the CIO Council, which means the CIOs of every, or whatever you call them, will be invited to ADE at a particular meeting zone at a specific time. And that's where we'll talk IT stuff. That's more very much at the IT level. So some of you in here probably have dual roles. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Now we're going to have Lyle come up and introduce the team and share some great information, I'm sure.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Saba said I needed to use PowerPoint. So you can thank Saba for me having a few slides in PowerPoint. I'll start. 1, 2. Someone said I needed a PowerPoint, so thanks Saba, my Director of Operations Support. Let me rephrase that, the School Finance Director of Operations Support. She reports to me, but that doesn't mean she's mine. So we've got some slide here. Saba is the one behind School Finance Fridays that Mark mentioned before. Saba is also the one behind Wednesday workshops. She has.
I like alliteration.
I'm just waiting for Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. I don't know what she's going to do with those. Before we get, well, you can see what I'm going to talk about. Lyle's update is EX1, and that's where I stop and where Saba starts. Go ahead. Some people take pictures of family vacations, and they get excited about the pictures. Hiking, camping, visiting family, whatever it is, they take pictures. This is a picture that really excites me. Mark mentioned this, I come in every morning, and this is one of the first things that I do. And he mentioned a downtime, that was August 23rd. If you scroll down the left, it jumps from 8:22 to 8:24. So I do look at this every morning. That ADM is, well, that is your ADM by day as we progress through the last 2 weeks plus. So that little blue bar on the left, just over 100,000, that was August 15th. September 8th, the blue bar on the right, that is 930,000 almost. So we have 100th day ADM of 930,000 right now. That's a projected ADM, assuming that all the data is accurate as of today, but we know you're going to have new students coming in. We know some of your students are going to depart for whatever reason from your LEA. So every day as you submit enrollments, withdrawals, etc., the next day will reflect that data. You have access to this information for your LEA every morning. I have access to all of yours, so do others, a few others at the department. But you can get this information every morning from your ADM 20, ILS 20, SPED 20. Segue to the SPED. Just an FYI, between Wednesday and Thursday, we added 30,000 ADM, 31,000 ADM. So it is growing. 15 to 20 or more LEAs are added into generating fundable ADM every day, including Saturday and Sunday sometimes. SPED. She's keeping me on track. SPED is very similar. It's growing every day. The 120 at the top here, actually if you go to the top of the line, it's 126,000. That's what I'm kind of projecting for your SPED counts. So we do have a little ways to go there. On the prior slide, I'm thinking 1,102,000 is the ballpark of where I believe we should be at the end of the year. So we're closing in on that. And making progress every day. I want to thank everybody that has worked so hard for the extra staff you may have brought in for the late nights, etc., to make this look so good. Go ahead. EX one. We do have an update. This took quite a bit of discussion. I think everyone and their brother, well not quite everyone and their brother, but a lot of people were involved in the discussion on this. It made its way to the superintendent, and she has determined that we need to basically delay implementation of EX1 as it is on the board today. I'm sorry. But, so we are back to about a year ago when we had the ambiguous language or confusion on what 10% applies to. We have a group of knowledgeable attendants, people coming in a week from today to present their issues on this. Bob Doan, wherever he is one of those. Norm. Sorry, Norm, I forgot your name momentarily. Senior moment. They are coming in as well as some representatives from Mesa. They will present their concerns. And then hopefully very shortly after that, we can get a decision as to what actually happens on July 1. It is possible it will be 10% applies to every absence. It is possible it might only apply to suspensions. And there are items, other options that I haven't thought of that could also apply. So, but we will get that out as quickly as we can as soon as we have the meeting with the experts in the field and present that to the superintendent. So I know you've worked hard on that, and I do apologize for this up and down and a few other words that might be used to describe the situation that has happened. Yes?
So I'm just trying to see if I heard you right. So for now, it's delayed.
It is delayed.
Talking the whole fiscal year.
Implemented.
Hopefully it will not be retro.
That is one thing that the superintendent mentioned is we should give you time to adjust for this, which is a great idea. I agree with that. We should give you time to adjust. But whatever it is, you would have until July 1 or shortly thereafter to implement whatever change may be necessary. But we hope to get that out. I don't know whether it'll be a couple of weeks, a month, or what it'll take for us to hear, present, and a decision to be made. But we'll get it.
July of 16 or July of 17?
I am sorry, July 17. Did I say 16?
No, you said
Okay.
July
Well, I could very well have said 16. I've been a little mixed up. Any other questions before I get way in the back?
We dutifully seized upon the new EX1, put it in our parent-student handbook, trained all of our registrars, have processes and procedures in place to follow it, and it's kind of like a little embarrassing at this point. We're like, oh, just kidding. So my question is.
And we have a couple of ladies up here that are shaking their heads.
Okay, so my question is, will we be penalized if we proceed with all of those things in place? Like, can we proceed with that in place? It's in our handbook.
Yeah, you can proceed with it. We're back at the ambiguity of where we were a year ago, and when we had some LEAs applying 10% to only out-of-school suspension and others applying it to all. So we're right back there. However you apply that
So
is.
it will not be an audit finding if we move forward with this process.
Matt is shaking his head no.
Good, thank you.
There's a little glare coming off his head, but so I couldn't really tell.
It will be the parents that protest.
It could be parents that call and say, and they're going to want you to change. That's where
They're going to say, prove it. Give us the finance. Give us the document.
We sent letters to the parents
that, any decision we make will have pros and cons coming from the field. I believe this year in EX1 with 3 revisions during the year is kind of embarrassing from my side of the coin.
So a question just for clarification. So you're pulling or temporarily delaying the EX1. So what revision do we go back to follow for this year?
What was the revision date we had on July 1, 2015?
There was one from November 6th, I think 6th of 2015.
That far, yeah.
No, December of 15.
December 15 was.
10% of out-of-school suspension.
So is that what we're
That's how
supposed to follow?
some interpreted it. Joe Noel, our AG's representative, had a really nice term that I thought was applicable, but my memory's failing. But it could go either way. It could be read to apply to all, or it could be read to apply only to the out-of-school suspension.
So there really isn't one fallback.
From December of 15 is the ambiguous one. That's where we're at today.
They don't realize that when you go retroactive, if we don't follow it and go back to the other one, then you guys decide we have to retroactive it to the beginning of school. It messes up totally a student's grade book, teacher's grade book. It's really hard to get a student that's been enrolled that now you've got to go back and withdraw because maybe they hit that 10 unexcused days into your system at the state, then re-enroll them, plus everything. I mean, the retroactive just does not work.
With all of our guidelines, I have always tried to make them future effective dates, not always successful. And with the superintendent's comments about giving you time to adjust, I think that'll be a little more consistent. How many questions can we take?
Will you be notifying the superintendents, anything going out to the statewide to let everybody other than in this room to know what's going on?
We are working on communication. We really just got things at ADE, got everyone on the same page. It wasn't until Wednesday. that we really were all on the same page about what was discussed and so forth. So that will be coming out. We just haven't been able to get that out yet.
Chronic illness?
It is addressed in there. I don't remember how it was, but those kind of details, I'm not going to take those questions today about the details in it. But they will come.
Discussed.
Pardon?
It will be discussed.
It will be discussed, yes. That's what you were asking, okay.
Yes.
And communication includes updating the website that right now has to July 16.
Yes.
Took it as an action item.
Because the biggest concern right now is, I went to our administrative team and I said, oh yeah, this is the new one. Oh, no, this is the new one.
Thank you.
And no, this is the new one. And as we're trying to implement this, is a major top to bottom change on how we solve problems as a district. So now they're all on board, I've got them all, yeah, let's go, this is what we're gonna do. You're telling me to tell me, you know, all that planning, I made the administrative team do. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
Is that what you're telling me?
That is what I'm telling you.
Cool. And so to be clear then, when they say to me, okay, what am I supposed to believe now, Melissa? Because they will, and that's a legitimate question. And then how quickly are they going to change their mind again, Melissa? And so then we're making a good decision as a district because it's a great big ship that does not move quickly. And we got them moving quickly on this file. It's a miracle. And you're going to tell me that my miracle was pointless. So I'm so excited about this one. I can't tell you. So, are you with me? Take me up on the way down here.
I feel like smoking food only. We will try very hard, like I said before, with the superintendents stepping in on this one and making the decision. It should be good at least until re-election time and hopefully beyond that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The decision could be made to stay with it as it is.
Yes, the decision could be.
But as of July 17th.
As of July 1/17.
So this year, we are,
And, yeah, you won't be audited against this, and Matt's gonna touch more on any kind of audit impact and so forth. Question was, however the district wants to handle it, yes.
Okay, I think I answered my own question. The first question was, why are we even looking at it? But then I realized, because I was thinking it doesn't affect money, but in reality, it does affect money if we have to do withdrawals. So I'm assuming that's the why.
yes.
That would be part of it, but, you know, the why, kids need to be in school, finances, the finance is, I think, going to be a small impact. Spoke with Bob and he gave some food for thought that was shared with others at the department. And the smaller impact of this on financing, because they have to get 18 days, then have to have 10 consecutive. It's going to happen at the end of the year, more likely after the 100th day when there is no fiscal impact. But, all this will be discussed and they may present it again at the meeting next week. One more, and then I think we need to get moving.
What part does attendance play in the school's letter grade?
That would be a question for accountability.
Have those discussions happened in your meetings with your leadership team?
Not in what I've been participating in.
Well, there was a question online. and it said to clarify, we revert to the 2015 December one until the new one comes out.
Yes. The 2015,
2015 December one.
oh, no. December 15th said only out of school suspension. We're going back beyond that.
So that would be 2009.
2009, oh, I misunderstood, my brain was not.
So it's not surprising we have a clarifying question.
Thank you for the clarifying question.
Do we have a clear version to go back to?
Yeah, that's a question.
You know, if we don't go back to the last one from 2009, it's going to take us months to get it out there.
But in 2009 is when you had both.
Yeah,
You had
yes,
both.
You could do
Yes.
anything, you could do either one, you could
Yes.
interpret it any way.
yes.
That's where we're going back. So we go back to the
Because the 2015 clarified it.
Yeah.
I think all of the revisions clarified it, but in a different way. So,
Do you know which one we're going back to?
Is there a clear direction on which one they have to adopt, or?
they do not have to adopt either one. It's,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just do what you
I
want.
mean, it's just what you were asking about. I thought you've already done one, that it applies to all, and that's acceptable. Others that have adopted all, that's acceptable. Or if you're applying it only to out-of-school suspensions, that would be.
And
So basically, you're not going to find audits on this year. This particular year is not going to be auditable as far as findings on that EX1.
No, Matt, just to confirm, no audit findings on with how they report absences in excess of 10% for this year.
Correct, yes, we're doing the bulk harmless.
They are holding on us on this.
Oh, and just to clarify, I feel like I also heard that one of the decisions the superintendent might make is to not change it. That is a potential decision.
Change which one?
So clarify which version to use, and so there are a number of potential decisions available.
There are a number of potential decisions. This could turn out,
But aiming for a future effective.
any one of which I believe will be effective 7/1/17.
We do have one agenda calibration, so we're giving you more time for questions. We will take a break about 10:45, and then the audit team will come up after the break. Okay, so you have until 10:45 to cover and take questions, okay?
Thank you. I'm tempted, that was less painful than I thought it was going to be. I'm gonna jump back as I go forward again, just so you know how much I'm gonna try and cover in less than an hour, so there's time for Q&A. But I was going to do the regularly scheduled school finance Friday, especially because we have news because not everybody's on our contact list, there's news in it. There is a question that's come up a few times, and Rose knows about it, so I'm gonna give a tiny update on 8th graders. And then a quick tutorial on the changes to your everyday process with the brand new system and the super speed it is. And then some of the common questions that my analysts are hearing right now. So that's, if you've ever spoken to me before, you know that I talk really fast. And I'm allergic to microphones, so over the course of the slide, I'm gonna slowly lower my hand. And sometimes I use words in other languages, so if I go too fast, or if you can't under a slide, just tell me to go back. These are my personal communication issues that I'm working on, so if you could help me if I go too fast or lower the microphone, you could tell me, real-time feedback. We've got metrics and lights and buttons, it's gonna be great. Generally, I have been working pretty hard on school finance communications. Our website is going to eventually, not immediately, go to the brand new, the clear, the rounded buttons and the accordions and all the beautiful new style. But for the time being, if you go to azed.gov/finance, you see my hot topics. I put things there, payments, budgets. It's handy. We are maintaining it. The stuff on there is live. If you go to our website, you also get our memos for the last 3 years, something. I don't have the retention schedule off the top of my head. If you are not on our mailing list, so that means you should have got an email at 4:20 p.m. yesterday, I would like you please to send your name, email address, and position to schoolfinance@az.gov, and that's how you sign up for the school finance mailing list. Because I did send something at 4:20 yesterday, and if you don't know, I'm going to feel very guilty. And in general, on our website, you can find your school finance account analyst. And Monica has made a really excellent point is sometimes when you're having trouble with something, you say, but ADE told me, or someone at ADE told me. But if you take time and email your account analyst and they email you back, you get to hold up a printout and say, my school finance account analyst told me this is the way to do it. And it's printed. And I always like to email like it's going to be read out loud at that position. So I with smiley faces too. I think that will help with that position. Just FYI, Lyle brought it up. I'm going to be doing something called Wednesday workshops. I walked into this position, you guys saw me 9 months ago, terrified. And one of the reasons I was terrified is a gigantic training gap. And so one of the ways I'm going to do it, because I'm a millennial, is on the web and embedding videos. So these Wednesday workshops, they are in person. And so if you have the means to come all the way downtown and sit with us for 3-4 hours, you can ask your questions immediately. You can hopefully get some help from us immediately. Worst case though, once we finish the topic, we'll record it, leave it on the web, so at least you can go back to it and see what it was. So this month we're doing 4 sessions on something I'm calling AZ submission through ADM reports. And essentially what I was seeing 3-4 weeks ago was a surprising gap between enrollment counts and ADM generated. There's some gap I expect because not every kid is 1.0 ADM, but this was a bit more. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew all the things that I know. I'm in AZ's development meetings every other day, and I'm talking to developers. I know all sorts of cool things, and then I thought maybe I'd been hoarding it. So we're doing 4 sessions on this one. We'll record it. A few people have come. I'm going to give you some slides on it today later because I want to get the things that I know out to all of you, and then record it, and then on to the next topic. Which means if you have something you really need me to teach you, you want me to document and get it out to everybody, these are the various topics people have requested so far. FTE, I think we've beaten to death. But other questions are, if I'm just looking at my students, how do I estimate my ADM? How do I estimate AOI ADM? You guys don't even know, but you're going to have to estimate DRP ADM if you've got some of those. So, also, the 2 main payment systems, A4 stands for apportionment. In your district, that's yours. CHAR, it's truncated for charter, that's yours. What do they do with your ADM? What else do they use for your payments? Huge question this year, certificates of educational convenience, so I hope to do a 2-week topic on that, throw up a video. And then transportation comes up every year. Don't tell Jim, but he's kind of my favorite for doing that one, so I might record him in a video. Thanks, Jim. I can say that because he's not here today. He's likely live streaming this. Just for your reference, every Friday I do a webinar at 9 a.m. IT has been participating and giving us really good information. I have a flat page that you can go to every week because right now we're trying new platforms, trying to get a more robust way of doing it. But the link for each Friday and the agenda are up on this site. It's in my, signature if you've ever gotten an email from me. And with that awkward segue, this is going to be your School Finance Friday for the 9th. I warned you there was going to be news in it. So quickly, for this School Finance Friday, I want to talk about the payment that we're generating for October, charter estimated accounts, SDER, how does quality of data filter in all of this, and regularly scheduled, I would have told you about Wednesday workshop, and a slightly new issue with IDPs. So we're going to pretend we're at a School Finance Friday, which means I really should not be able to see you because I'd be online. I know I've been telling you for the past few weeks to plan for your payments, and that payment 1 would be estimated accounts, and payment 2 would be on estimated accounts, and then payment 3 we would go live to AZs. We're going to stay on estimated accounts. There's a lot of ADM in AZs. There's a lot of people who've been working their tails off to get their data there, but there are still a lot of you who are still working. And in the effort to keep payments continuous and make sure you guys can still serve your students, we're just going to try and keep the same numbers you had last month, so your payments are the same, so it doesn't impact you too much. Ideally, if we use one uniform way of paying everybody, I'm sorry if you worked your tail off to get to this stage, but you have a legitimate question, probably.
As of what day? Because there's things that I didn't fix in charter estimate accounts or new things like that or stuff.
Let me pop to the next slide. You have a reasonable question. As of what day? Maybe my charter estimated accounts have changed. Which is why I opened the charter estimated accounts application yesterday, and it'll be open until Wednesday the 14th. You may know, you may not know, the payments team, while they process a value for the payments, they have to hand off the payment to ADOA and the treasurer. I don't do that part, so I'm not sure. It takes a few days, so that's why for a payment on October 1st, we pull back 2-3 weeks even to work on it. So that's why I need your estimated accounts if you'd like to change them by Wednesday the 14th. But it's open right now. So I wanted you to be a little bad news. Sorry. SDER is open. If you've never done it before, it's the school district employee report. So obviously it's going to affect districts and not charters. We use the data to calculate your TEI, which what I understand is a ratio that if you didn't have it in there, it can affect you in your overall payments. They're not individual kids, it's almost like a multiplier. And there's a hard deadline on the 14th. Thank you. Previously, I had written 15th and I didn't run it by Monica. So on the 14th, I think there is a window in February where you get to February where you'll get to adjust it if necessary, but as a time being, hard deadline on October 14th. Because this is current year data, you can't open 915s on SDER and things, so try to communicate with HR, just in case, you know how we've just heard that some people in grants didn't know this technological thing. Try to communicate with HR so they know that this is still in common logon, and it's that time of the year again. Try to communicate with your business manager so they know this deadline's coming up and you're working on it. Trying to be more proactive. Question that I'm getting a lot is, why is my game so important? Why are my integrity errors so important? This isn't fair. What integrity is checking broadly is reasonableness of your data. So if you've got a bunch of kids with end dates before their start dates, I won't even know when and how to pay for them. So sadly, if a kid is failing integrity, he is unlikely to generate ADM. And then your ADM is one of the largest factors that goes into your payment. So paying attention to those errors really affects your payments. I'm sorry. But that's why you guys are so good at what you do. Just FYI, I'm going to have a Wednesday workshop in 4 business days. Some of you have signed up. If you'd like to sign up, email your account analyst. It's great if you bring your own laptop. We found that one of the biggest prerequisites is, do you have the right permissions in AD Connect? There was a huge design change between SACE and AZES where we used to maintain permissions. Now in AD Connect, you guys maintain permissions. So sometimes people come in, they've never seen the screen before. So prerequisite, go to AD Connect. So when you go to azed.gov, it's in the top right corner. If you can see the AZES portal, if you can find reports, then you're good. If you've never seen those before, find your entity administrator, and then come on down, we'll walk you through things. Monica has a thing.
With the Wednesday workshops, the last hour that we spent is teaching you how to reconcile your data the way that we would do it based off of our experience working in school, which means utilizing Excel. So we go over a lot of tools that we would use, formulas that we would use, because we realized that the Excel level experience level isn't the same. So So we dive into your data, so we ask that if you do sign up for the Wednesday workshop, you are bringing the ADM 15 and the STEP 15, the STEP 10, because we are literally showing you the lookup, count and formula. We're diving into your data. So it's a good opportunity if you're not as experienced with Excel, it's a good opportunity to learn some of those tips from us.
So Monica brought up that third bullet in case you couldn't hear her. Since we'll be working with your reports and we'll ask you to bring your own computer if possible, it'll help if you pull them ahead of time. Save a little time. This was, I've said it before, email your account analyst. The other thing is I'm trying to get a web option for these Wednesday workshops, so even if you were in Prescott, I've never driven to Prescott, I have no idea how far away it is. It sounds far away. Even if you're in Prescott and you can't come all the way here for your Wednesday workshop, I'm trying to get an online option of it. I watched the thing that you did, and it was amazing, so that's why I'm going to call you and ask for help. Thank you. News. Sad news. This is fiscal year 17, so in a 950 that you request this year can be 16, 15, and 14. You can submit a letter to request a 950 if you already know what you want to affect and you're ready to go. I just haven't been able to open the windows the past 2 weeks. We're still working on it and emailing IT a lot. We're getting there, but getting there. So that's what a school finance Friday feels like. It is up to the minute news. Delivered in my very, very fast speaking voice. But now they're embedded on our website, so you can go back and watch them. We had a dry run, it was amazing. Thing that's come up between once a quarter and once a month, and I keep looking at Rose because she's the one who held it under my nose and said this is important. Some of you have 8th graders who are more advanced in the courses than you can offer in your building, so you send them to a different room to offer them 9th grade courses. As we were discussing it, we really seemed, for some of the tickets, it seemed like the easiest answer was say, well, just make sure they have a membership in that 9th grade room, and the courses will land. The answer is not quite so simple. I know. Last time I was working in a school, we didn't send course data, so I was not aware of the complexity. So I sat down with the ASCUS board. They very generously talked me through the different ways they handle it. And so I'm going to sit down with AZ- and STC and accountability and talk through really the best way to handle all of it. Please expect a more measured and thorough response in October. I know. I'd rather set reasonable expectations than promise you I'll do it tomorrow, because one thing we've discovered is Saba is very optimistic and sometimes really thinks she can do things tomorrow. She cannot. That's what I learned. Two questions.
Sorry, so this is not just 8th grader in high school. It could also be high school to high school. Like say you don't offer French. And so it's not just 8th grade to high school. I want you to make sure you're aware that it's not just that.
Do you mind if I take a second right there now?
Am I right?
Right. The 8th grade to high school
that is one.
The additional complexity of setting your cohort. But
correct. Yes. But you also can have, like a high school doesn't teach French or whatever, and you have high schools in your district.
Or you have one online school in your organization and they take one online class.
Mm-hmm. That's different.
Also, there's more than just 8th graders, right? It goes down lower grade levels than 8th.
8th grade is the most common, although we're only talking about a handful of kids in your district. 8th grade is the most common, and so I thought it would be the easiest case to express quickly. Because part of this slide was going to say, no news right now. So sorry, that's why I said 8th and 9th. That's the quickest way to say it. But, yes.
Thank you.
So I've been working with IT, and they've been giving us some pretty great metrics on just how are the transactions going, how are enrollments going, and as we aggregate this up at a higher level, some of the things that I brought up and said we were going to have to train on is this your daily process is going to change, and I call this quick training monthly processes no more. And because a lot of you already know it, I inserted jokes, because jokes always help. So what does AZ stand for? I stole this one from Stefan in IT communications. Arizona Education Data Shark. Just kidding. This slide is what is ASENS, what isn't ASENS. ASENS is Arizona Education Data System, and it's essentially data collection system at APE. What isn't ASENS? A robot to replace you. That's another joke. I get a few comments like, ASENS is pulling this data out of my system every day. ASENS doesn't pull anything. ASENS is just waiting, and you have somebody in your building with you, an IT director, it might be you yourself, who set it up to push data to ASENS. The other thing ASENS isn't doing, for example, is setting cohorts. ASENS is just one of the applications we have at ADE. Accountability has a separate application that sets cohorts for high schoolers. So there's a number of things ASENS does do related to data collection, and there are a number of things that ASENS isn't doing, which is actively reaching out to you and doing things for your students.
Yeah, I have a quick question, just that you mentioned the cohort. So those of us who are in high school districts or have high schools in our district, that information is super important. And in SACE, there was a really horrible search engine, and I was hoping that you guys would add a much more robust and intelligent search engine so that we can find out our student and what cohort year has been assigned as a view-only access. And that would be tremendously helpful as we're enrolling kids from other districts. What cohort are they in, and so what, therefore what grade?
Conveniently in the room, we have a bunch of people from ASENS, which is specifically the data collection. Right above ASENS is an umbrella called ALIS, and that's all of the new applications that Mark and his team are making, and conveniently, the program manager is here, so I'll make sure I touch base with her and we figure out where and when to put that.
Well, to piggyback, a possible place would be on ASENS Identity View. So you look up their ID, they have their cohorts right there.
Hey now. Awesome. I'm sorry you have to watch me for 1 second. And when you write it on hat, it goes slower. Another joke. What does a data coordinator do? And time travel. Because it's unbelievable the sheer amount of work you guys are putting in every day. Time travel. So for some of the people who are brand new, there's a lot of turnover. Something I expect a data coordinator to do is all of the data at your district. You know which kids are related to which kids. You know their vaccinations and what bus they get on. You also know how much of that to actually tell me. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to know everything. I really only need to know the data that I'm actually going to use. So some of that is yours. You can have your own records for the student. Some of that you report up to the state. And it is your responsibility to know which set of data is which. And my next slide is to help talk about who can help you know that. So why are you submitting data to ADE? In part, I do it for state funding, in part for federal funding, in part because ADE grades your school, in part because we require you to test your students. I can tell you certainly about all the things that affect ADM. There are other people who can tell you about the other things that the state wants to do with your data. So for example, if you have a bunch of students and a bunch of float forms and you don't know what the next step after a float form is, you can call Nikki and Ellis. Yes?
I have a question. Who can tell me why you collect Title I? Why are we collecting Title I information? If that's assigned to my student as a data piece attached to the student, why are you collecting Title I information?
I can tell you.
I can't see it.
I can tell you.
I went on a long odyssey of departments at ADE, and this is what I heard. Ready?
Okay.
Cricket, 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 nada, nada, no one's
That's too
declaring.
efficient. We can't put crickets on the phone. Too expensive. I have been working with the different program areas to get together a set of links.
Yeah.
And just like I know that I have a training gap and have to update my documents, other people might also have a training gap and have to update it. But I'll certainly reach out and ask the question, because I know I'm not the expert of it. I'd really rather get you the expert.
So this is where you do the magic. because
Oh, bless you.
I know. Okay, well, I'm so excited to hear the answer.
I've actually attended Title I coordinator meetings with Nancy Connoisseur herself and asked for that information specifically. I think they passed it on to federal people to prove how many people are being serviced in Title I. I know the Title I department has asked specifically for it.
Then the first person I'm emailing is Nancy.
Is Nancy.
Thank you.
And here's why I asked that, because when I talk to them, our school reports that not from my SMS.
Ooh.
And also they're asking for it in the SMS.
Ooh.
So that's why because they said to me, well, I was getting errors on Title I, and so I'm like, okay, whose data is it? Why is it in there? And who can I make accountable for this? And so that's my journey in my district, and then also then at ADE, right, to get the right answer here. And, right, so the school said, no, we report it differently. We don't use your SMS. I don't know why you're tracking that. And so I said, okay, well, let's go find out. Somebody said, do this,
Yes.
right?
I know.
At some point, that decision was made, so that's why I'm still interested. I know you guys need it, but why in the SMS?
Not you guys,
Okay, right.
but all of us.
I mean,
all of us.
all ADE programs, guys.
Yes.
Okay.
I will look for the right person. I want to get us all using the same terms, so I draw this little doodle over and over and over. Finally, I made a cartoon out of the doodle to walk you through using the same terms. One, the little blue man there. I'm sorry if using one gender or the other has to do, but cartoon people don't have a lot of features. The little blue man is you. You've purchased a thing, and the writer of that thing is in the room. I call it your SIS, your Student Information System. I know that you work with a lot of different information systems because you do all of the magic in the building. But the one that I talk about is the only one that you use to talk to me. So my first slide in the cartoon is which side of the line is you, and I cannot see which side of the line is me. So all the things on my side is what you've actually pushed to me. Everything else, the vaccinations and stuff, that's in your SIS, at your LEA, on your side of the line. The line is the API, or what Mark was calling the transport layer. So that's the line is the transport layer, the API. I call these places, and the reason I'm referring to these different places is yes, they correspond to databases or tables, but they also correspond to things that I have done. So the vertical lines are things that ADE has done. Your data is going straight through from where you pushed it. So the first thing ADE does is the API, right? So your transactions are either accepted or rejected. The next thing that ADE does is run it through a set of integrity rules that is an end date before the begin date. That's ridiculous. That's the integrity rules. And the last thing ADE does, that's for state aid, is generate ADM in ACE, which is time for my next joke. What does ACE stand for? It's not a joke. It's an acronym and an acronym. It's the ADM calculation engine. Here is my favorite thing and the thing that I think is going to affect you the most, and I hope helps you the most. The API is available 24/7. It's been my experience that it's basically 24/7. There are a couple of outages here and there so they can patch things, or I don't know about the code versions and things like this, but generally my experience has been 24/7. Integrity is currently scheduled to run every weeknight at least at 5. So if you get your stuff in before 5, for example, in Sublime Unified School District, if I enroll Monica and I type her in on Monday, I should be able to see her when I come back to work on Tuesday. So that, I think, is the biggest change in my workflow, is I don't have to wait a week and a half to see what happens. And then my favorite part, in terms of changing your workflow, is ACE is hitched right up against integrity like a train, and it goes immediately right after. And that's my favorite. So you should be able to see, I'll get to see Monica's ADM on Tuesday, and that's my favorite part. The reason I quick pointed out all the different places is so that you can understand when you're looking at a report, what's the source data on that report. And one of the things that hurt me the most back in SACE, and since SACE isn't in the building with us, I can say that. When I'm in the building, I say nice things about SACE, and I try not to scare SACE. But one of the things I heard me both about saying was every time I go to pull a 72, it looks a little different. And it's because part of the data on the 72 is just verification, did it land in the system, and part of the data was post-integrity data. And so that's why, depending on what time of the day you pulled it, it looks different. Here is my favorite comment I've been getting for the past 2 weeks. I have 10,000 errors. I may do this slide to help you break down which kind of error it is. The API was designed with these HTML codes. You know, when you go to a website and you see like a little picture of a cat at a shopping cart that says 404 not found? Those HTML codes, broadly, the 400s are failures, the 200s are successes. So if you see a report that's got 400s and 200s on it, like 409, 201, and then some long strings of letters and numbers and probably CTDS numbers and things like this, that's likely at the API level. The person who can help you with that type of error is either the person who wrote that transaction, you're suspended, or the person who was trying to read and rejected that transaction, the ASCUS. So either side of the line will help you with that error. The other type of error that you're going to get a lot is integrity errors, and this is my favorite part. We were super careful about the way we named integrity rules. So all of the 10,000 series integrity rules, that's a 5-digit number, starts with 1, those are membership rules. And the 40,000 ones, those are the SPED rules. 60,000 ones are the STC rules. So if you see a report, and the reason I'm being vague is because maybe you pulled it through your SIS, maybe you pulled it through AD Connect, but it's got a bunch of negative 5-digit numbers on it, and then a sentence, that's an integrity error. So the person who can help you with an integrity error is either the person who wrote business logic, right? So that would be maybe me, maybe it would be calling ESS, or it would be the other side of the line, the ASCUS team, to kind of see what's actually in the database. So that's why I put them all in the buckets with it, so you know which side to go for. Sorry if I'm going slow.
Can you go back one slide?
No problem.
I have a quick question. Our HR department, the citizens, the people that do all that stuff, we're redoing the job description. We're kind of stuck at what do we know we want them to know ASCUS, but it's covering everything. And coming from a small school, we kind of want, I guess I'm trying to figure out all those reports. We want to be able to hire someone that can read all that and not come and say, well, I'm only doing SPED or I'm only doing ELL. You know, we want them to know all of it.
And sadly, I've only put the reports that have to do with me on here. There are other reports, right? There's an ELL 10 on there. There's a support, like there's a support group. Oh, I put it on there. But there are other reports as well. And ASCUS is also collecting more data than just affects ADM, right? It's collecting course data and staff data as well. So I don't know that I'm the right person to give you advice.
Yeah, because if we want our ELL coordinator to read that report, we have to give her access role to see that report.
Do you mind if I defer that question to you?
Or to see the
What all
SPED
expertise a data coordinator needs?
report.
Just because it's been a number of years since I've been a data coordinator. And that's pre-course data.
I just want to say, it really matters district to district.
That's true. In a really small district, you might not need Excel super skills.
Summer withdrawal.
Integrity errors.
That's on my last slide. Okay. It's under new issues.
Okay.
Here's a cool thing. If you click on AD Connect and you click on the ASCUS portal, the first feature you're going to see is the system status page, and that'll give you a hint as to what's on your integrity and ACE reports, because it'll give you a hint if integrity and ACE ran last night. So you have it all green, everything's go.
Thanks, Ava. I got the previous question. You can assign just the ELL reports or just the SPED reports to individuals using AD Connect. So that person doesn't have to see all of your ADM in order to see just the ELL reports. You can
Oh.
do just individual bits and pieces.
Sorry, I thought you were looking for the expertise when you're writing the job description. So yes, you can assign specific permissions to specific people. For example, all of the ADM reports are on one roll together. It's called AZ Data Coordinator, ADM reports.
So are the reports, when integrity runs, and so are the reports updated at that time too? All the reports?
It's been my experience that the verification reports are live. I don't think there's a delay on them. The integrity reports, when you go in after integrity is run, it will be the new data, which means it's possible you can see ADM every single day. Is that the one that I want to take on?
All real time too?
I think that's certainly the intention. The top ribbon, I don't know if you can see, it's gray. It's very soothing. Those are actually tabs you can choose. The first one says system status. The next one is the dashboard. I call it verification. This is just a quick check what's in your system, just to see what landed, high level. This might make your job really fast. You know you put in 100 kids and 2 of them are participating in ELL programs. When you go to the verification dashboard and pull up all your kids, if it says 100, if it says 2, you can plan out the rest of your week. You're probably not going to have too much work ahead of you. If it says 2 and 0, you should probably start crossing out things on your date book because you're here for the long haul. Yay! The next tab when we're on the reports, the ASCUS portal is reports. And Monica was in a meeting with the VA for reports, and he pointed out 2 very cool features that I didn't know. So if you see there's a little blue, once you get to an actual report, there's a little blue circle next to the name of the report. While yes, there is an AZ's blog and an AZ website with all the QRGs, means quick reference guides for reports. In the report itself, if you click the blue thing, it comes to you right there. I was really excited to hear that. The other thing that made me really mad is every time I run a report, it's this dinky little strip down at the bottom, and actually in the top right corner, it says that's a minus. That's not just a dash. When you click the minus, it changes into a plus, but also the page expands. So all of the parameters you put in for the district name and what date you want to pull, those all collapse up. And there's more space for reports. I didn't know that. It made me really happy to hear that. These are my favorite reports because they have to do with me.
So, all your slides here are going to be available to us, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Now that I've pasted it on their computer, they have it.
All right. Yay. Thank you.
Or you can come to one of my Wednesday workshops, and I will send them to you. We'll make a video out of it. These are the reports that generally affect me. The one thing I did want to point out is all the ADM reports are in the bottom little green thing together. So you just need one roll to get the bottom little green section. And then all the ADM reports, as we make new ones, just go in that bucket and you have the roll. And now you can see everyone has made them, which means if you are only seeing ADM 15 in the past, all of a sudden in the past couple of weeks, you now have 3 more reports. And those are the summary ADM that I hope will match, what's the word? 46-1 and L28 and Spec 28. So I'm hoping that those 20 series purple reports on the end will match them. It's going to be good. Getting superstitious. Here is a quick word, and I made it in a rainbow. When I say reconciliation, sometimes I mean, did your kid land in AZ? Sometimes I mean, did your kid make it to integrity? If I say student data to ADM reconciliation, I mean, did your kid make it end to end? And I usually do that with spreadsheets, that's just me. But in English, in conversational English, I'll pull all the kids from my SIS, and I used to pull all the kids on a 75, now I pull all the kids on the ADM 15. And I used to be lookups because I'm an Excel person, but in theory you should be able to print it and highlight if you're that person as well. And that's, you're essentially looking for the memberships in your SIS compared to the memberships that are generating ADM. That said, if you've got 100 over here and 2 over here, you're going to want to know where everything fell out along the way. You want to know which memberships are not generating ADM. Is it because you accidentally sent them as a foreign exchange student instead of a regular student with the wrong tuition paragraph, or which memberships are failing integrity, or which memberships didn't even land an ASICS. So sadly, that's why if you go to the verification dashboard and there's a huge gap, that's why you're going to block out the whole week, because you're going to try and figure out where all your kids actually stopped and made it. The newer news that I don't necessarily have answers to. So the common questions that my analysts have been getting lately, that maybe I have answers to already, maybe I don't, but just some threads. If you are having a similar problem, please report it. Because the quicker we can get issues to Mark and his team, the ASICS team, the quicker they can research and see if it's really an issue or not, right? So this is why I warned you. It's an up-to-minute one, so sometimes the slide is ugly. Summer withdrawal is all over the place in 7 different ways. And it's in part because the first time you heard about it was an integrity rule failing, saying you submitted the wrong summer withdrawal code. So if you went to my, webinar last week, Sherry and I told you we were going to sit down with accountability and talk through how we're collecting summer withdrawal information. In part, we don't necessarily need all of the summer withdrawal codes the way we used to. SACE is lovely, but there are some design changes we got to make now that we're not in SACE anymore. And one of them is some of those summer withdrawal codes we don't need. So the ones that we do need are going to stay on the withdrawal form, the official notice of pupil withdrawal. Accountability keeps it on their site. It'll take us a little time, but we'll get integrity and ASICS working the way that we need for the way we want to collect data. I intend to put in a school finance manual the second it's approved. The manual is approved. Since I'm not the approver, I don't want to promise away the approver this time. And you've met me before, and you know that I can be overly optimistic. So, I said that I walked into a training vacancy, right? So one of the things is update written documents. The other one is Monica made one training video years ago. I'm tasking her, thank you, so sorry, to break it out into a lot of videos. This written documentation is one of those things. I'm sorry. AOI ADM.
Can you tell us what the summer withdrawal codes are that they are going to?
It's very few, definitely 7. There are 3 others that I think affect federal reporting and help take high schoolers out of the cohort. Right, sorry, I did go to check. It was, can I clarify which summer withdrawal codes we will still be collecting? So for primary school students, you don't need to summer withdraw them. You should be able to safely remove them from ASICS. Warning the vendors late. For primary age, school age students, right, K through 8, they don't necessarily need to be summer withdrawn. There'll be guidance on the official notice of pupil withdrawal. And you can remove them from ASICS. So I don't know what it's going to look like on your SIS's screen. They might help you by making just a no-show button or something. I'm not sure. And I'm sorry we're telling you at this speed, but this is my up-to-the-minute news. For high schoolers, it's possible that they enroll in another school and remove themselves from your cohort. It's possible that they go out of state. So I think the 21 is out of state. So we'll get there. We'll get there together. So what do we do in the meantime? You will accept my thanks for your patience. Thank you.
Is that why we're getting a lot of errors on the integrity on our summer withdrawal kids? Is that part of the reason why we're getting those integrity errors?
Will those ever go away?
That is the hope. We all get on the same page, and everything works the way we all need it to work.
Something about no. No is in all caps, that's all I know.
Using the microphone, please.
Sorry, I warned you ahead of time that I'm not going to always be great at presenting. So if I didn't copy the question back to you, tell me, try to repeat it if you think I might wrong last time. Is this related to, are we gonna keep seeing integrity errors? I hope not. That said, I don't wanna promise it tomorrow. We're working on it, and please accept my thanks for your patience. Sorry, I didn't bring you better news. AOI ADM, there's a cool thing we can do in AZ is project ADM, which is based on the minutes per day that an AOI student is participating. So that means, so a student who is still enrolled, we use one formula. A student who is withdrawn, we use the end of year formula, right? 900 hours over 900 hours. One cool thing we're seeing is if you preload an end date for the AOI student, the ADM looks tiny. I've seen the most adorable ADM on AOI kids, 0.05, 0.1, just really depressing, teeny tiny AOI ADM. Do I have a solution for that? Immediately. We've been sitting down with the ADM calculation engine developers to talk about that branch and logic. And the next step, I think, is also to come and talk to you guys. So I'll hope to get a communication, and I'll work with the AZ team to get it in the blog. So this is literally my up to the minute, what am I hearing on the phone every day? AOI ADM looks fine. There are a few different, I'm going to invert the third and the fourth bullets. I'm getting a bunch of questions about FTE issues, DOR issues, and some of them are kind of centering around preloading dates. In that some of our rules are designed for a student to be enrolled, and then when they withdraw, get an end date. So there's one that's 10104, I think, is there's a gap in DOR. Oh wait, someone had 17,000 of these. And it was because they had an entry date in August, an exit date in May, a begin date of tuition payer in August, an end date in May, a begin date of FTE that ended at the end of the semester. And so technically that's a gap. So one of the things that the developers suggested for that is to not preload end dates. I mean, I can't give you concrete solutions, but we'll all work together. But I want you to know that this is what I'm hearing a lot. I know, this is a really awkward disclaimer every time I get to a bullet. The other thing that people have been asking me a lot, and they have a right to ask, because I didn't tell you until 5 minutes ago, is are you going to open estimate accounts for the October payment, just in case you walked in late? Yes, it's open now. Please do it before Wednesday if you need to. And then there was an issue for a while. By a while, for me, is like 2 days. That's what my email is like, sorry. Of preschool and homebound students with errors on either null minutes or 0 minutes. What are the ASICs blocks? So you know how on an earlier slide I had a list of different program areas to contact that are experts about their data field? The experts about the ASIC system, they have a blog and they have red flags. So you can sign up for red flags to show up in your phone. You can sign up for the blog to see these kinds of solutions. You go to find the A-list page, click on AZs. There's a little red band to sign you for the logs. There's a little red button to sign you for the red flags. I would do both because the preschool homebound thing, they're working on it and they put out a blog post about it. So that means I didn't have to say anything about it. Except I skimmed the blog. I don't remember. Sorry. I will happily take your questions.
Okay, so I have a quick one.
Oh, good.
You were talking about preloading end dates.
Yes.
Have you found any errors? Because I was getting a weird one that this might speak to it. A weird one if we preloaded absences. Right, so if I have a student who's out of school suspension or whatever we call it, right? And we've already said it's going to be a 10-day, so they just preload in the attendance. Or you've got a group of kids who are going to be going on Friday because they've got a football game, and right, and so they preload the attendance. Huh?
I haven't heard that one yet.
Okay, so I'm just saying, if it's a problem with preloading data that shouldn't be there, I haven't had a chance really to explore it yet, but I think that's also a possible error throwing issue.
That is interesting.
Okay.
I have not heard it at all yet. It makes sense. Sherry is here.
I just wanted to clarify on the preloading of end dates, the reason it's become an issue is because we require an exit reason. And so one of the things that we've been challenged with is With ASENS, we want better data quality. So in order to have better data quality, if we preload all the end dates and the exit reasons, it could be that you don't go in and actually update the accurate exit reason. And so those are things that we're working together within ADE to find the best. It's finding that best happy middle ground where we're establishing an environment that makes it easy for you, but also improves our data quality. So I just want to clarify on that one. It's not so much the dates themselves, it's actually the reason that is mandatory to be attached to it.
In part that I included as well though is, remember when I enrolled Monica in Subway Unified School District on a Monday? I sent her an enrollment reason and the DOR and switch care like this. It's the FTE one where the end dates are acting a little strange because each of those elements has a beginning date and date. That's why I left it there. Sorry. I could have fleshed out this slide better, but part of the slide is this is what I'm hearing right now and I don't know what it is. So. Hi, so I have to ask my question again. Can you address the double SACE ID issues? Thank you, I wrote it down, but I wrote it down really small and then we wrote all over the place. Well, I know, I saw that. You're taking great notes and we really appreciate that, but SACE ID, double SACE IDs, ADFI IDs, I'm not sure what to call it nowadays, is they're a problem. From my understanding, every kid has both. They still have a state student ID, but they also have an ADFI ID. Yes. Because I have no, what do you call it? I'm not a developer. I say state student ID because that's what we put on all of our reports. And it kind of sounds like CCD a little bit, so it makes me feel comfortable. Sometime around February, we started exploring the number of tickets that we had out there for splits and merges, which is the terms we used in SACE, where if you have two kids on the same ID, they need to be split apart. So if you have a kid with two IDs needs to be merged together. We do have an application to merge IDs right now, and sometime around May, the program areas in ADE asked that we move that function into school finance because it does actually affect, for example, you know how when you have a student who tested an ID, but for whatever reason it's not showing up, you have to go get that assessment and match it. So if we're more careful about the way that we merge students, it affects less downstream systems as the whole. That said, my team, they've each blocked out X number of hours a week. One of them, bless her, has blocked out over 10 hours a week. And we're getting tickets faster than we can resolve them. And in part because some of those tickets are for splits and I don't have an application to do that yet, but in part because it's a kind of complicated process because I'm checking multiple schools over multiple years. So one piece of advice I have for you, at least on the front end, when you're going to hit that search for the student and populate his ID button, do a little research in his records ahead of time and see, has he really been in the state? Does he just double check? To save you for waiting for my merge queue, I'm sorry. It's somewhere above 600 right now. And each ticket sometimes has one kid in it, sometimes has 200 kids in it. That's, I know. And that's why I say bless her, because she's spending hours every week on this. And I'm pretty faster. So hopefully it's not a huge proportion of your students. If it is a huge proportion of your students, call your school finance or email your school finance account analyst so we can kind of talk through how badly that'll affect you or not. But the best advice I have for you right now is ahead of time, be careful. There's a question in the back, but thankfully she's already got a microphone.
Okay. So far, when we have found that we have a duplicate, and it's usually in the ELL situations, we've been directly emailing you with as much information as we have on the new and the correct FI numbers. Is there another way you suggest to get that information to you? Because it has been about a month, and I haven't heard, I'm working on it, or I got your email, or we don't have a way to fix it. I don't know what's going on. What is a better way to let you know that we found one?
Do you have a preference?
So tickets, since we just inherited the process, we've asked the person at AD support that helps triage those tickets has agreed to continue to create the ticket, and then they put it in the school finance bucket for us. So that's how we are managing the volume of tickets that we're getting for that specific situation. We want to continue to funnel it through.
So just in case you couldn't hear Monica, I'm not actually doing the merges myself, Monica is, thank you, Monica. But continue to put them in tickets, and we're working with the support person, the triage person in support, and they're still putting them in our queue. So we're managing them right now out of the queue.
Yeah, there was a question, how do I know if a ticket was generated? If you send an email to ADE support at ade.gov, that goes immediately into my queue. And what happens is we have a person dedicated 100% all day long, opens each one of those and determines where it should go. And so if it's a split merge, he reads it, analyzes it, and figures out, okay, that's school finance. Once you do that and you submit it to that email address, automatically you should get a ticket or a ticket number back. Really?
Lori, I am.
I get them too. So it's ADE support at aced.gov. And usually, if I send it to, sometimes I'm too lazy to go into the machine and type the ticket by hand. So I'll email a ticket to the system, and within about 5 minutes, it says a ticket, you submitted a ticket, here's your, what's it, issue, something, your IR number. And then I go back in and I give that ticket to Lori and say, Lori, I made this thing. But I usually get them within about 5 minutes. Oh, you have a microphone already?
My question is, we have a lot that we find have duplicate SACE IDs, or FIDs, sorry, and the matching says 100%, so do we just do eeny, meeny, miny, moe? Because that's what we tell our schools. We have no more info, so even if you go to the AD identifier, there's still no more information on these students.
So here's
So how do you know which one to pick?
Here's a real thing that really happened to me at a charter back in 2012 when I was doing it. We had a kid who showed up twice. They had the same first name, same middle name, same last name, same date of birth, same mother's first name. I had to get into a folder and compare 2 transcripts and 2 birth certificates before I knew which one to do.
We're getting a rash of twins getting the same.
Yes.
And the twins.
Yes.
So still just pick one and then put in the ticket?
I would say try to do a little bit of research because you requested the records. Hopefully there'll be some SACE ID in there already.
But if you don't have records, because the kid's starting today, you don't have anything. The kid's coming from another district.
If it's reasonable that the kid legitimately has not been in Arizona before, then I can see why you would just go immediately generate an ID. If you've got a transcript or a withdrawal form from the previous district, I expect an ID to be on the withdrawal form.
But we don't always get it on the day that the student comes to register, is what I'm saying.
You have a couple of days to report. And so that's something that'll help you from waiting in my 600 ticket queue.
So don't put an FID until we know which one to pick.
I trust you to balance that priority, but it will save you time waiting in my queue if you wait till the records.
All right, and then I have a second question. Then what about guardians? So we find duplicate guardians with FIDs. Or guardians with duplicate FIDs. Do we still put in tickets for those to clean those up? Or just let them go?
I just saw an email before I go back by asking about duplicate guardians, but I don't collect guardian info myself. So, do you mind if I get back to you on that one?
Sure.
The person who I thought was on that email thread shows no record. Might be someone.
Excuse that me?
I thought you were on the email thread, no?
I have a suggestion. What I do when I have the duplicates is I go to the school associations, and a lot of the times, maybe 75% of the time, only one of those IDs has school associations. So I take the one that has the school associations and send my email to ADE support saying, I have this kid and he has 2 FIIDs. I picked this one because that's the only one that has school associations. Then I'll get the ticket back and then you guys merge it. But that might cut down on the time
Yeah,
for them.
I think that's a really reasonable algorithm if the previous district is taking more than 5 days to get back to you with the record. So that's a really reasonable check.
Hi, I would like to know if it's possible to go someplace and look at the status of my tickets.
Lori just brought it up a hot minute ago. She's working on a web interface that you get to see your tickets. I know, I feel like I saw a primitive version of it, so.
Yeah. And then Microsoft, it's a Microsoft, we're an ABE Microsoft shop. And the ticketing system that we're using at the moment is a Microsoft product. And we held it out on the public portal because they did a bunch of updates. If we would have done it, it would have cost us a lot more money to make it work. Now we're in the design spec and it's coming, I promise. There's just been a lot. And there's only one person at ABE that manages that application. So just like you face budget things that we, so, and there's lots going on with the ticketing system. You need better. You need something better than what you have at the moment. And when we update it, we just say that we, the auto that comes back through the auto email, it comes back and just says your ticket has been updated. Well, heck, which one, right? And sometimes it doesn't tell you what there's opportunities, I know. And I am willing and all ears for any opportunities that exist that would help you. I know public facing for sure. In fact, I would love to have some of you guys on the focus groups. We certainly don't want our developer. He's so way out there smart that what works for him is not going to work for us. And so if you're interested in helping me figure out what that public portal looks like, contact me and I'd love to have your input. Because it's for you.
Do you mind if I pause for a second? We've got a question online and I want to ask them a question. The question says, ELL transactions are preloading end dates and there are no end dates in my SIS. My first impression of this is that might be something to take up with your SIS vendor. In case I'm misunderstanding that what you inputted and what the SIS sent for you is different, can you give me a little more detail on your question? So I think we've got 3-4 minutes and a microphone.
Hi, yes, I'm a business office person, and I think this might be for Lyle. And let me know if this isn't the right forum, but we're having a little confusion in the business office figuring out 2 scenarios. If we're a declining district with a declining enrollment, Lyle's smiling over there. When does and we're having this 1-year opportunity where if we have a declining enrollment, we have a true up and we can get paid for our 1600 day ADM if it's more than the declining. When does that happen? How does that happen? First question.
When and how? The changes that are being implemented in A4 allow us to pick whether you're prior year or current year funded. It says declining. Normally that would be comparing 2016 ADM to 2017 ADM. We still have some LEAs, some districts whose 2016 ADM is not where it should be. We're still working through the details on that, but we'll do that throughout the year. And it's not automated enough that the system will figure out whether you're growing or declining, but we can control with uploading an Excel file, basically, to say this district is prior year, this district is current year.
But when does that funding happen?
When does that funding happen? The changes, we're hopefully going to have that in for the first time on November 1. And then it will be updated periodically through the year. It'll be checked. You may, the status prior year, current year may not change, but we'll update it throughout the year. Look for changes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And then conversely, my business director did a budget and estimated the ADM for 2017, and we've been declining for several years, so she budgeted accordingly, but it turns out, it looks like our ADM may have gone up somewhat, not a lot, but some, so in case we're not a declining district, if she budgeted less than we're actually going to have, is that going to get funded also?
We don't look at your budget when it comes to the amount of state aid that you receive. We look at the ADM spent, the ELL, the SDPR, those kind of things to determine your state aid. Budget capacity, those reports are updated as we make the payments and the changes to the payments. And a new budget 25 report is generated or will be generated every month. And you can revise your budget. If your ADM goes up, you definitely need to revise your budget upward so that you can spend that. But you've got until May 15th. And the way that is looking, ADM's looking, we should have some really good ADM, some solid ADM long before May 15th. But if you're going to ASBO, I'll be there in the afternoon talking about this.
Next week?
Next week.
Okay.
Wednesday.
We're right about 10:45.
Any questions, Microsoft?
Just one more. So, I do have a question, but first, I just want to say that we all appreciate your sense of humor. We also all really appreciate how far all of you have come in the last few months. It's really a nice presentation today.
Thank you.
My question is simply, we're aggregating every day, and there will be a once monthly aggregation that counts for payment. How do I know exactly which report to look at so that I know which one my payment is based on?
It's not a report to look at. If you go to ape.gov/finance, so that's just how you reach me, over on the right, I put a red button. And that's the dates that I'm going to take your data. I use a term I call data capture date. And essentially that's the time that I'm going to integrity, the 5-6 p.m. deadline for integrity. And so that's the date. So on it, it said September 9th at 5 p.m. So that would have been this run of integrity that you could see 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Okay, so I get that. I knew about those dates. So it will be the one that runs at 5 p.m. on that day. It's not Saturdays or Sundays, it's that day.
Yeah, so if you go look at the difference between so if you look at an integrity report or an ADM report, they both refer to a data capture date. Because they're hitched up to each other like a train, they're both working off the same captured data, and that's that 5 p.m. deadline. So that's why I made sure to talk to IT as much as possible before I published that list, because I want us to try and be a little consistent this year. Except for apparently giving to. But otherwise consistent.
So after the break, are we gonna come back to this question and answer, or we didn't get
I think we do need to take a break, and we do have a little time. Like I said, we had to calibrate the agenda. Research and evaluation team could not be here, so we do have a little bit more time. And so why don't we take about 12-minute break, come back here at 11, and we can take a few more questions, but we need to have time for the audit team. You'll have questions for them too. Okay? So come back at 11, please. Thank you.
Okay, it's so good to see everybody reconnecting and sharing information. Jamie?
I didn't even know I was supposed to wear it.
Are you in the room, Jamie?
Oh. At the end of this, all the questions that you submitted, that lady that I quoted one of her, she sent a lot of follow-up. I'll send you all the questions that you submitted on. So I don't know if we didn't need to send it on the mileage team or whatever, but I'll just forward them to you. You can do with them what you need to.
Okay. I can have your attention. I would like to introduce Lisa Eddy. She is the chief auditor for the audit division at AE, and she will introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Lynette. My name is Lisa Eddy, and I'm the chief auditor for AE. I recognize some people here, and some people are not familiar to me, but as Annette said, we in the audit team audit about 36 charter schools and school districts every year. And we're auditing sort of on the back end. We're looking back 3 years to see if the data matches, if there's any issues, and we also provide some education and assistance during the audits. So, and we have a great team. We've got 2 audit supervisors right now and 3 auditors. And we have 1 audit manager position vacant, so we're looking for another person for that position. But we're a small unit, just 6 people plus myself, and we get to go audit all of these different charter schools and school districts. So with that, I'm going to introduce 2 of my audit managers, Matt Boucher and Melissa Moreno, and we've got a presentation for you that goes through basically what we look at during the audit, and it's to help prepare for an audit that you might be going through and to answer the questions that you might have about what we look at, the kinds of issues that we commonly see during the audits, and how those issues can be resolved. So with that, Melissa.
So when we do an audit, this is kind of the general steps that you'll go through if you get selected. We will notify you by phone usually, and then we'll also send out an invitation board. When we start an audit, you'll be notified by us, usually a few months prior to the audit begins, and we'll send out an engagement letter that'll say the things that we want ahead of time, and then it'll go with the entrance conference dates and things that we kind of probably discussed with you over the phone before we send the letter out. Things that we'll look for and what we're going to be doing will also be put in that letter. We'll also go over today all the things that we do, the instructional hours, how the meetings go, how we sample, just kinds of different meetings, as well as at the end of the audit, once it's completed, what our process is from there, report writing, and the appeals or the adjustments that might be made.
And as Melissa had said, this is the audit notification letter that you'll receive when we're coming out to engage the district or the charter. As well, I'd like to thank that Melissa hit on the fact we'll try and contact you first. I know there's nothing more frustrating than dealing with yet another audit, let alone just being surprised by getting this in the email. So one of the things is we try and just paint that picture of what we're looking at. One of the divides between what the audit unit is doing and what I think a lot of you are doing with school finance, you're looking at present day stuff. we're looking historically. So some of the items or data that we're requesting in that format may have a little bit of discrepancy that we're used to. So we'll try our best to give you templates and kind of show you the information we're looking for and how to go about that.
And the letter includes the basic information we'll ask ahead of time, which is bell schedules, calendars, and a spreadsheet that includes all of your students, similar to the AMS 75, but something from your system that we can compare. So when we ask for bell schedules, this is kind of an example of something we're looking for. We want to see what periods of the day the students have, if there's something like a lunch period. Sometimes schools have other periods during the day that are not normal class periods, so we'd like to see those, as well as the passing time between the classes so that we can verify that the passing time is meeting the limits. So this is kind of an example where you see a regular schedule, the half-day schedules, a lot of schools have half-days or early release days. If there's other schedules going on, like events, sometimes you have assemblies or things like that. So when we look for bell schedules, we want any bell schedule that's used throughout the year. So these are some of the examples you can see those.
And this is an example of one of the calendars we've received. A lot of the time when I'm engaging in LEA, what I'll explain to them is the bell schedules, the calendars, that's really the foundation. We're going to use those in trying to reconstruct what happened at that LEA for each of the given years we're looking at. A lot of times, people will focus on the bell schedules. We've got a routine schedule, maybe a Monday through Thursday, and a Friday half day. A lot of times, we'll see the LEAs appropriately account for that. They're looking at adding extra time in other periods. One of the challenges is that there are often times where an LEA is not taking into account the calendar aspect, as far as assembly days, or they're doing additional schedules or surveys of that nature. So we try to account for it exactly as it happens, so we can evaluate the LEA the way it occurred.
And then the third report that we asked for is this. It looks like this is 75. We usually look for the first 100 days, since that's what's funded in the state, so that's what we are, I guess, ASCUS now. But for past years, since we're auditing, we'll still be looking at stays. But since we're only funded through the 100th day, that's what we will look for. So when we ask for reports, that's all we want. And this is just a typical basic report that has every student and how many membership days they're enrolled and their absence days, so that we can use this for our initial comparison when we're selecting our samples.
And this is an excerpt of what we'll use out of our Excel sheet in calculating the instructional time that was provided in a given year. This portion here is just going to focus on the actual calendar days and what the schedule is set up as. This example's got the Monday through Thursday and Fridays, as well as half days. Fridays being an early release. Oftentimes, like we were talking about with the example of the calendar, the Fridays may count, be incorporated into the planning. But there are oftentimes these half days get introduced where the LEA didn't account for that those periods are now down to maybe half an hour as opposed to their usual 55 minutes. So when we look at the total time provided over the course of the year, we'll account for those. And that's usually one of those teaching moments where we can say, you can see how these additional 8 days of half days had affected the instructional hours provided that year. All of this you'll see when we go into the instructional time and the hour calculation. This is everything we're using to determine the FTE factor of how many courses the district or the school is going to need to generate a 1.0 FTE.
So once we have the calendars determined, we put into our spreadsheet the instructional hour bell schedules that were provided. As you can see in this, the passing time is included in the periods as long as it's between instructional periods, so we do take that into consideration. We then determine if a period is instructional or not. As you can see on this example, that lunch is not instructional, so we said no for that one, but the remaining classes were. So this gives us the total number of minutes per day for each of the different types of schedules, which we can then use to multiply by the number of days we calculated on the calendar to determine how many hours in total that grade level was receiving for the year.
This is one of our check tools that we have built into the instructional hour calculation worksheet. And basically, this will just have the formula summing up the individual different calendar days, regular days, Fridays, half days, and it's going to compare that based off the statutory requirement for the grade level. This is a quick check for us because this will, where it says met in the second to last column, that'll turn into yellow and say no if we're not accounting for the time or we're catching that. One of the things we'll run into quite a bit is these alternative sites for some schools. They'll set those up. The challenge is a lot of the times they're meant for high schoolers and we'll have it set up on a 9 through 12. As people are introducing those 8th graders, 7th graders, there is that grade level instructional hour difference. So being able to account for that is important. I see that happen a few times.
The other thing we use our bell schedules for is the FTE determination, which is usually applied to high school students because they're a little bit more complicated with their periods. So the first thing we look at is for each period, how many hours was that class provided during the year. So you can see on the right, as periods 1 through 7 all have between 150 and 170 hours per year. But the period 8 that we calculated on this bell schedule only had 45 hours. It was a shorter class period for some reason. A class period has to be at least 123 hours to be counted towards FTE and instructional hours. So period 8, since it doesn't meet that requirement, would be excluded when we're calculating the total hours a student is being provided. And then on the other side of the screen, you can see that we, for one period, we averaged it for the spreadsheet, but for the example you can see, but we would actually look at the actual hours and add them up depending on what periods the student is in. So if they're in periods 1 and 2, we would add those hours together. If they're in periods 6 and 7, those specific hours. But for the sake of making it a little easier, you can see we used an average. So if they're in one class, they get 167 hours. They need at least 180 hours to get a quarter of an FTE. So even though they have one class period, that student would be reported with 0 FTE. With 2 classes, it would be 335, which is enough time for a quarter of an FTE, but not quite enough for a half. So that student would be a quarter. And then you can see it would take it to 5 classes for the student to get at least 720 hours during the year. So that's what we would be looking at to see if the student was reported at 1.0. So if we see students with 4 classes being reported at 1.0, we would adjust down to the quarter of an FTE, or the quarter of an FTE difference for that student.
The presentation Melissa and I are doing right now is essentially what the engagement conference would look like. We want to give you an overview of what we're looking at, the types of information, and what you can expect. Typically, I know I will, I've learned quite a bit from Melissa, I'm sure she's along similar lines. We'll go over the first few steps, give you an idea of the process we're going to need, the documents we're going to be looking for, and maybe kind of touch in a bit on the closing out aspect, what it looks like going forward from there, from reports, and dealing with appeals and all that. One of the reasons we try and focus in on that short term is that there's a lot of communication back and forth. There's a lot of different data or records we're going to ask for. Sometimes we'll have, it's not quite suiting our needs, so we'll have that back and forth. And by that time, we're probably a month and a half in, and everybody's kind of forgotten about what that back end looks like. So we try and keep it broken down into manageable pieces. We understand everybody has a lot of obligations. We're trying to make it as smooth and as streamlined as possible. There's a significant amount of administrative work that we do on the back end that you don't see. A lot of that we take on is just to make the process easier overall.
One question I get a lot at the engagement conferences is, are we going to be showing up at the school site? We try to do most of our audits from the office and get documents from you electronically. So if we select you for an audit, most of our meetings will be scheduled telephonically, and we'll try to collect information digitally from you. If there's a reason we need to come out to the school, if there's a problem with data, or if we need to come out there to meet with people, we can always do that if it's easier for the school or there's a reason to. But typically, we try to do it from our office just so that we're not in your space interfering with your work during the process. So the first thing we would do with the data is compare what you provided to us in that first initial report to what the ADMS 75-1 report had. So we'll look for any discrepancies or anything that might be unusual. that we would use and then select the samples. So you can see select some students from the membership days from one report to another are different. We'll usually include them in our sample just so we can verify that the entry dates were correct. We might also select students with an extremely high absence rate just to verify the student was actually enrolled in the school. There's other reasons we might select a student. We also select students randomly because you never know if there's some issues. So there will be various reasons that we'll select students. But we would, right after the entrance conference, typically send over a list of samples to students that we'll ask for additional information for.
This is an example of what that sample list would look like when we send it over. We'll have 3 years. We'll separate those out just to make that easier in pulling the information. I know there's multiple ways in trying to pull some of these reports for the information we're looking for. Sometimes it works best for some LEAs by school site. We'll try to include that on those districts or schools that may run into that scenario. The challenge is that, and I know a lot of you at the district will see that you'll have a student going from one school site to another or moving around. It can be a challenge for us to give you all the school sites we're looking for. We're just trying to help narrow it down because, as we were talking about earlier, sometimes we have students with very similar or the same exact name. So this will help distinguish it.
So when we select our samples, one of the reports we'll ask for is an attendance profile. We want that to include the days that a student is absent, for what periods if it's a student in high school, as well as the reason for the absence, if it was excused or unexcused. We might even go to the detail of what that specific reason is. So if you have a system that keeps those notes, usually a digital version of that is acceptable for us. So this is an example we see a lot of an attendance report. This particular one breaks down and shows the exact classes the student was enrolled in and the membership days, and then you can see it'll have an absence code in the columns when a student is absent. So this is just one example of that. This is another example we see. It doesn't necessarily go into the details of the classes, but it can show us if they're absent from periods 3 or 4, or whichever period it is, which is helpful when we're calculating the absence for the day when partial day absence. So this is another example we see. So it can come in different formats, but as long as it has that basic information. That's
And this is an example of how we view or analyze ADM when we're auditing. We're going to use the previous example where at this school site, it took 5 courses to get to a 1.0. This student has, typical courses as far as USAC government, financial algebra, English 7. They also have a JAG course. We were not including it for this actual school site. So we see 3 eligible courses for this student. So off of, so there's the 3 courses. We're using those same tables that we had on the instructional hour calculation sheet that we had showed you. And this is basically saying we're identifying 3 valid courses, and that would generate the 0.5 FTE. A lot of the times what we'll see is maybe a simplified version of 15901. We see the 720 hours. LEAs will see the 4 courses, but not necessarily follow the rest of the statute, where it's talking about the 4 courses, each of which need to have 123 hours, combined to the 720. So there are times where we're engaged in LEA. They're seeing that they're providing 720 hours. They're seeing that they've got 4 courses, but it doesn't necessarily fit when we show them how to calculate over the course of the year. So often we'll get these students, they were funded for 100 membership days, and then in auditing it, we identify something like this. That would end up being a 50-day membership day adjustment or a 0.5 ADM. What we'll do from here is identify all those students and provide that to you.
When we're calculating FTE, we apply it to the time period that the student is enrolled in those classes. So if for this example, the student was enrolled in 3 periods for 50 days and then they jumped up to 5, we would apply 0.5 FTE to 50 days and then switch it to 1.0 for the remaining 50 days. So if the student changes their schedule, we do take that into account and change the FTE when we're calculating that. All right, EX1, Lyle already spoke to you a little bit, so we kind of showed there were several revisions over the past period of time. So the most current one is 7.116, which is effective for fiscal year 17, but as we discussed, it's not being applied to schools this year. So you're going to be held harmless if we come out to audit you. We won't be looking at this at all. So if you're using the current version, that's fine. If you're using a previous version, that's also fine. We won't be looking at that at all. So you won't have any adjustments or have to worry from us about any findings on that.
Since you don't audit the current year, down the road, that's gonna be noted later on, that this year will be a whole harmless year for future audits.
Right. We always look at the guidelines that are effective for each year when we're auditing. So for the 16, when we're auditing 16, 17, and 18, we might be looking at 17 and 18 for this, but 16 will not be looked at. And then depending on what the guideline becomes final by the next year, that'll be what we'll look at the next year.
Once we go through and provide all the adjusted students, we'll talk about those and say, this is what we're seeing as adjustments based off of statute or guideline and our interpretation of what occurred. We'll have a back and forth exchange. There will sometimes be 2 or 3 revisions. If anybody's worked with me, you'll get a chance, you've seen that, where as I update or as student findings get resolved, maybe there's additional documentation, we'll have those corrected, so that's one less student. We try to make it as collaborative as possible. We certainly try and take continue additional documentation up until the last minute as best we can, because we want to make sure we're getting the picture right. We'll have that communication back and forth as well. The numbers, once we get through them and identify them at that first instance, from then on shouldn't be a surprise. It's going to be, any of those shifting would be based on that supplemental data. Once we've finalized that, this is a lot of the administrative stuff we'll do. We take our adjustments, we'll apply those on the reconstructed budget worksheets, and then that's how we're getting not only the ADM student counts, but we can show you what the financial adjustment's going to be per year. Those are all going to be the talking points that we'll go through so we can make sure we're discussing those. We include growth where we had that, and that gets factored in as well.
One thing during our audits that we like to do is make sure that the school has a chance to review everything that we think we're finding before we proceed with it. Because sometimes we're missing documentation, or we might be misinterpreting it, or we might be looking at the wrong thing. So when we have identified some students that we think there might be a discrepancy with, we send that entire list over to the school with the students that we think there's a discrepancy, what that might be, and why we think there's a discrepancy. That way the school has a chance for students, if we think the FTE is wrong, they can double check to see if maybe they forgot to include some withdrawn classes that the student enrolled in when they sent it to their schedule. If students we find we didn't think they attended, it gives them another chance to look through the files to see if they have documentation that shows that that student did in fact attend. So that way we can make the corrections before we proceed with calculating any budget adjustments or writing a report based on data that we may not be correct. So the school does have a chance to review all of that. So we'll show them all the ADM, what the total ADM adjustment would be, and potentially what the financial impact could be if the data is correct. So the school will know for sure and be able to review everything before it can proceed with that.
And this is another one of our touchstones where we'll get together and we'll talk about those adjusted students, the ADM, which direction that's going. Again, we don't have any personal interest in how it goes. We're trying to get the data reported as accurately as possible. We'll go through some of those finer points. There are some times where some of these concepts may be new, or an LEA may not understand the department's impression or application of a particular guideline. This is where we'll go through and talk about that. Again, when we talk about statute and the generation of a 1.0 FTE versus a fractional student, there are times there can be some different interpretations on it, so that's where we like to get together and talk about it and see this is what we're experiencing, whether this is the way we're applying it.
Once we in the school have come to kind of an agreement, for the most part, of what the adjustments are going to be, there were two different options. If we determined there were no other options, there's the letter report. And if we have adjustments, they typically are financially impacting the school, and they could be in the benefit of the school where we end up paying money back, or it could be in the benefit of ADE where the money has to be paid back to ADE from the school. So those are the two options once we've completed our field.
This is an example of the letter report where it's going to identify what we've gone in and looked at, identify the different aspects of the ADM reporting, and then we'll also identify the fact that of our audit work in reviewing anything, we didn't find any material adjustments, and it's a simple page report. We'll pass that on to the schools. We'll also, with this, and certainly on the other report, which you'll see with Melissa, we want to make sure we're getting verbiage and language correct. We don't have that as much with the letter report, but again, we just like to get some feedback from everyone.
If we do have adjustments, we would issue an actual ADM audit report. You can see a lot of these on our website. If you look on the audit unit website, we list all the audits that we've done for the past few years, and you can see that some of them have different issues. There's a lot of FTE issues or instructional or different types of things. Some are in the benefit of the school and some are not. But this is an example of the report cover that you would see when you receive that. And again, we'd let you review the draft prior to issuing it, so that way the school has a chance to have any say if they don't like the content or the wording, that there's some input from the school.
And then this is what's going to be included in that ADM audit report. It's going to identify what we're doing, what the intent of it is. It's also going to identify what we're looking at and how we're going to go about auditing that information or that data. Then it's going to get into the findings portion. We may have 1, 2, 3 findings. It really depends on what we discover or what we're identifying. There are times we may have a non-financial finding, something as far as maybe not maintaining any residency forms or immunization. Those are going to usually be a bit more rare, depends on what sort of initiatives coming from the department. Within the findings, a lot of the times when I'm working with an LEA, I'll let them know that it's going to be texty, it's written in audit speak, it's going to make the same point in multiple different ways. I know for the most part, a lot of people will kind of flip to the back end and just see what the overall adjustments are. One of the things I like to do is when we're do the report, again, we'll have that draft meeting and talking about the language and the content within there. Condition is what we're finding or identifying when we're out there engaging in district. The cause, this is where I try and get the most feedback. There are a lot of times I can identify what happened or what created the issue, but there are times it could be a combination of them. When we have that draft exit meeting, this is where I want to find out, did I get this right? Is this accurate? Criteria will always reference the statute or guideline of why we're finding a discrepancy between what the condition is and what we expected to see. And the effect being the ADM and financial adjustments to include our recommendations is going to be just identifying additional ways to try and prevent those findings in the future. And then, like I said, the last page we get to the ADM and finding adjustments where you can see what that net effect is.
So once the schools have a chance to review that draft, we have a draft exit conference with them. That's where we'll meet the school. This is usually one of our last meetings with the school where we go over any other concerns or changes or questions they might have from the draft. We might make changes based on feedback from the school if the wording is slightly wrong or if they want a little bit of change to make this a little more accurate. We'll consider those changes and then we'll make those changes. That's pretty much it for that meeting. We'll also discuss at that meeting any remaining process, which Matt and I are going to discuss with you as well.
This is again one of that administrative tasks that we're going to be doing behind the scenes to keep everything moving along. Once we've had a draft exit, if there's no feedback or that feedback has been reviewed and incorporated in, we'll go ahead and do the publication. We've got an internal print shop that'll go ahead and produce those. We'll send out 2, 3, a few copies to the LEA, certified USPS, and upon signing for that is when that 30-day window of appeal opens. We'll get into that a little bit later. As well, the reports, we have internal communication channels where we submit it through. We'll also publish it online. That's about it as far as what the audit unit's gonna do. We don't call anybody, we don't notify anybody. We're pushing out an audit about every 3 weeks, Melissa and I. So we're rolling through these pretty quick. We've got time to just get through, talk about it, identify what we're finding, and then close out and move on.
So with every audit that we issue, there is going to be a notice of findings, the legal document that comes along with the audit report. And that notice of findings is the appealable action from the agency. It'll have a lot of legal wording in it, but it basically says either the department will be paying the school back or the school will be paying the department back based on what the findings were. So once that's received and signed with the certified copies, the 30-day window starts, that the school has the option, if they choose to appeal that report. If they don't want to appeal, I know sometimes when schools are getting money back, they don't want to wait 30 days in order for that to process. So if you notify us, once you've received the report, that you have no intent to appeal and you're going to waive that right, we'll go ahead and process it and send it over to school finance immediately. Otherwise, we'll wait for the 30-day window to complete. If we don't receive anything from the school with their intent to appeal, we'll proceed from that point. But if in that 30 days we do receive that the school would like to appeal, we will hold an informal settlement conference with the school, and we'll also proceed with a formal set where it goes to OWA, where they will have a judge there who will determine whether they agree with the district or the ADE on the right to that report. In this time, the school also has the option with the payment back is usually over 1 year, but if there's a hardship or the amount is fairly large, there's also the option to request hardship, where we would split it up over 2 years instead of just
A lot of times we'll talk about the informal or formal appeal. They're really not two separate events. These things are tied in lockstep. This is another one of my administrative tasks that I'll take on. So there's scheduling, there's notification of OWA, there's trying to set up the informal appeal where the LEA representative will get together with our superiors to try and identify it. Neither Melissa nor I take an appeal as a personal affront. We certainly understand it. It serves a valuable purpose. I think we've been seeing that recently with all the debate and discussion with EX1. A lot of these appeals help the department as well identify things that may not have been perceived out in the field. So this is a valuable tool. The informal appeal part is where we're going to, again, that's where we're meeting with superiors, my superiors, Melissa's, and talking to them about what the issue is. Maybe it's an interpretation issue, maybe somebody doesn't like our methodology. Any of that's valid, where we'll get in there and try and discuss the issue. There are times where it can be actually focusing on the issue. Is this interpretation right? Is the wording correct? Or there are times where it's, we'll set it aside, we're not going to delve into that. Let's see what's more reasonable given the circumstances for the individual LEA. The formal appeal that goes on as well simultaneously is the Office of Administrative Hearings. We'll notify them and get a calendar date. The point of contact at the LEA should get a notice of a calendar date from one of us, the audit managers, that we have a calendar date at OWA. And that's where we'd appear before the administrative law judge over there. One of the challenges with the administrative law judge, or with OWA in particular, is the fact that they may not be well versed in education statute Title 15. We've got somebody that may have some knowledge about it, but certainly not to the level of you, and certainly not to the extent that we're working with you and what we're learning about it. So that's really what we try and maximize the results out of the informal appeal, because we have education professionals talking together and we can work through that and help improve that system. If it goes to formal appeal, we'll go present the case from the ALJ. The ALJ will make a determination based on the two sides and the presented information. That gets forwarded to the superintendent of public instruction, where she may accept or decide otherwise.
So if the school chooses not to appeal, or if the appeal process is over and there's either a settlement or determination, whichever happens. The audit team will then send documents over to school finance, and they're the ones who will process the adjustment. It'll show up on either your 8464 or your chart 64 as one of those adjustments you'll see on the last page. It'll be split up over whatever the remaining months are for the year. Usually the first one will be kind of a catch-up month, where if you're in the third month, it'll be the first 3, and then the remaining months, it'll just be 1/12 of the adjustment that you'll see in the payments that you receive. If we receive hardship, it would be the same thing, but over the 24 months instead of over 12.
Here's our contact information. Melissa and I both have cards up here as well. Please feel free to take those. One of our views are that we see school finance as the backbone to it. We certainly try and provide to education. That's how the schools are able to operate. We've got Title 15, we have guidelines, we have all these other things in place, but without the infrastructure of school finance funding the schools, there's not much that the department can do to support more than that. One of the things I like with school finance is, in their developments of these guidelines, is that they're pushing this information out to the field, and this is what we're using to audit against. We can't replace school finance. There are times I'll get calls or inquiries about something much more suited to school finance. I'll find somebody to coordinate you with there to get those resolved. But we are more than happy to be able to receive emails and calls, and we'll work with you if you've got concerns related to the audit issues or things that we're looking for or identifying.
I think that's all we have. Do you guys have any questions for us about audit or something you're concerned about?
Mine's on the Arizona residency form. It says that it will be updated annually, but it doesn't really give any guidelines. I've looked for any rules that I can find to help me with it. It implies that you update it with your annual enrollment. We don't have annual enrollment, we roll over, so we developed a form that would be like a verification of address, etc. So now the question is, do we need to also collect the documentation again? If the parent has stated that their address is the same, is that going to be good enough?
I'd say it depends. If this is a district that's maybe near one of the other state borders or so if it's not near a border, I probably won't focus on it too heavily as long as it's reconfirmed every year. If it's one where there's a higher potential for it, I would recommend getting it every year just to make sure that the student didn't move and the parents, misleading the school. So if you feel that there's a reason to doubt it, I would definitely collect it. We could be asking for it, but we in the audit unit probably won't if there's not a high risk of that.
And to follow on that, I know there was concern because at one point we were mentioning, or word was out, that we needed these forms filled out every year. We needed to collect the documentation. In communication with school finance, we realized the burden that puts on the LEA. I know I've been accepting just an update or a notice on it, getting a signature just saying same information and moving forward on it.
And basically my comment is that there's just not good guidelines on the form itself that talks about it. It just says, verify during your annual registration. It doesn't say anything about how to do that or what you need.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things we've identified recently as well with all the communication on some of the guidelines, or certainly some of the things we're identifying in the audit. We're trying to get that built up. We don't build any guidelines, any sort of communications that we're pushing out. Again, that's a school finance arena. All we're doing is going to evaluate the LEA against what is out there or what's in standing. That's a valid point, and we're trying to, and I know Saba's been making great strides on trying to get the communication out, making sure it's well-vetted communication, and making sure it's accessible. We hear you, and that's what I have at this point.
Are the independent auditors acting on all of these counts that we've talked about, including that this year, the EX1, are they all operating on the same page as you folks about Arizona residency,
all these different.
We will make the information available to them. I can't guarantee what independent auditors will do because we are not connected with them. But it's usually findings from independent auditors. They don't usually make the financial adjustments when we do that. So if I see a finding about this specifically, I wouldn't necessarily select a school because an independent auditor found this finding if they choose to look at that.
On a withdrawal, excuse me, on a W-4 and a W-1. We do W-4 until we get notice from another school. Is it proper to use the same form to change it into W-1 or leave it as W-4?
For documentation purposes, on anything, if we can clearly identify the fact that this is an update, typically something like striking through the original entry, initial and date, we can see something that doesn't look like it's been modified or corrected just for us and our audit purposes.
Copy of the 10 days attached, right?
I'm sorry?
We can still keep the copy of the 10-day consecutive attached to it?
Yes.
Because I went through an audit about 2 years ago and I didn't do that and there was a finding. I tried to tell them that, you know, they did go to another school. I had the attachment, but the original drop was a 10-day. So I just do keep both forms?
If you can, was the finding from your independent auditor?
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges we talked about a little bit. We do similar things to the independent auditors. Main difference being they look at a lot more items or aspects of LEA or education, and they take a very small sample. So they're skimming the surface across multiple arenas. As opposed to an AE's audit unit, we're looking at ADM or ADM functions primarily. And when we go through and we evaluate those, we're going to go deep on those. We're looking somewhere around 10% each year. So I can't speak to their finding, but for us, we try and be as communicative about it as possible, try and identify it as far as there's no supporting documentation. Often with the attendance profiles that we've shown earlier, we can easily see that there's an extended stretch of absence. I'd take something like that. I don't have an issue with it. I think there's plenty of avenues to support an action or transaction in SACE or AZs going forward, and we certainly try to be as accommodating as possible.
So here's my question. Our independent auditors use the USFR. And school finance and now you are saying, well, we don't have any control over updating that document. And that's where these changes need to be in much quicker fashion than is the tradition, so that we are following what we're asked to do and then we are not getting findings on doing what you ask us to do. How can we help encourage the Auditor General's office to update their document, say, at least as often as we're updating, say, EX1? Wouldn't that be fun?
Thank you, Melissa. I was waiting. I was waiting because I knew. I've worked with contacts over at the OAG. I've worked with some of the independent auditors. I've given the feedback. And I don't know if you and I specifically have talked about it, but I do understand that that concern is out there. All I can do, and I have done, is present that information, present the things we're identifying and what we're looking at for incorporation into the USFR compliance questionnaire. Unfortunately, it's going to be OAG that publishes it, and that's their final determination.
Yes, to be clear though, I asked how we can help. What can we do? I know that you guys do what you can do, I know that.
Absolutely.
What can we do? Because there's got to be some, what would motivate them to update it finally?
the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The more often we're hearing that, the more that we're seeing that this is an imperative and needs to get fixed. We've heard, the department has heard you. We've seen that with EX1. The department will listen. We just need to make sure we're all talking about the same thing in a constructive manner, what we need to make it better. We'll get there, it's just going to take time. I'm sorry, Melissa.
I received an audit, an ADM audit finding for fiscal year 13 for not withdrawing students who had surpassed the 10% allowable. So given that there's been changes back and forth, I didn't appeal it at the time. At the time, I didn't really understand that that was the expectation because, as I believe Lyle said, that EX1 that we were operating off of at that time was fake. So given all of the EX1 fund, would ABE's audit division consider rewriting any of those audit findings, or am I out of luck?
That's the gold star question for the day. That was the one I was waiting for. Thank you. We did. We presented that, and we said we're going to hold you harmless for EX1 findings because of, and you saw the revisions and some of the issues we've had with it. EX1, the oldest one I can find is from 06. We were operating on the one from 09. It was effective for those years. It's been around for a while. The point being that it wasn't fully implemented or applied. And there could have been some better ramp-up time for sure on that. Those findings on the LEAs that have been adjusted on the EX1, that's going to be addressed. Like Lyle said, we just really finalized a lot of this determination regarding EX1 on Wednesday. I'm good, but I'm not that good, and I'm trying. We're going to get those addressed. Please take a card, contact me, let me know. I'm going to build a list so we can get that resolved and fixed.
Is it going to require a 915 though?
I can't look into the crystal ball, but my impression is going to be that we're going to handle that or coordinate with school finance. We're going to take that burden off the LEA and not make that your obligation to perform, because that was ADE and that was in-house.
Will we have to contact you?
If you can, at least so I know, I can easily go through our reports and start identifying it, but I'm not perfect. In case I miss, I'd rather have some email list and build one as well.
With the common log-on going away, how are we going to access these reports for previous year audits?
This is one of the examples where I would have to coordinate with school finance and figure it out. As far as I look historical, last 3 years, I have very little understanding of what's happening now with the AZs and what that data is looking like, the user interface. I'm kind of in a time machine. We're looking backwards. So I don't know what current practices are. But again, if you want my contact information, let me know what that question is, and I'll find somebody who has the right answer, because you don't need to wait for it.
Just have a quick question about the 55-minute rule. What is the status of that?
Yes, some may understand that there used to be a rule, 55 minutes equals an hour in the instructional hour calculation or provision. That ended in 2012. We're calculating real minutes, real time provided.
But we do include passing time. So if you have a 55-minute class period plus 5-minute passing, we consider that a 60-minute class, as long as the class after that is also an instructional period.
I just wanted to know if your slides are going to be on the ASCUS website, we'll give you later, or the spreadsheets, maybe links to those.
Absolutely. We do have our FTE presentation on the audit unit's website. I know I've got a copy of our presentation today with ASCUS. I don't know. Yeah, we'll be good to get that uploaded. And then I'm sure there's going to be some sort of communication where we can work with joining that information between ours and the school finance puts out, so there's some sort of mutual understanding of that. Thank you, everyone, I appreciate it. One last thing, if anybody has time, if you have any questions, concerns, if you like what you saw, if you've got recommendations for improvement, we've got surveys up here.
What are we doing next?
Worked on
Going
those.
back
Thank you.
to finance group, you're just going to lunch and you're done.
Thank you, that was a great presentation, lots of great information. So we appreciate all the AD team being here today. Our school finance is still here in the room, so we do have a few minutes before lunch. And lunch will be to the east, the building to the east of here, on site. So we have about 5 minutes or so. If we want to ask any more questions of school finance or any other
Before lunch, right?
okay, if not, then we are going to break for lunch. Thank you all for being here. And enjoy your meeting this afternoon.